Test. I'd like to call to order, please, the regular Board of Education meeting for February 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. If everyone could please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everyone, especially students. When we have you here, we love that. This is our first meeting of February, so I would like to acknowledge the beginning of Black History Month. I would also like to acknowledge Career and Technical Education Month, and we'll hear more about Dr. Rowe and the SWWC a little bit later on. This is our first opportunity for public comment. A member of the public may address the board briefly for up to 3 minutes or request to be scheduled on the agenda of a future meeting. Please note that students will be given priority to speak on any topic. The first public participation portion of the meeting will be limited to 1/2 hour, 30 minutes normally, and limited to agenda items. A second public participation portion will be offered at the end of the agenda to allow for any other comment. Individuals addressing the board should take into consideration the rules of common courtesy. The public participation portion of the meeting cannot be used to make personal attacks against a board member, district employee, or student. I am seeing no student comment forms. I'll just double check. I am seeing one community stakeholder forum, Dave Rosenfeld. Dave, I know you know the rules, but just to remind everyone for our future public commenters as well, if you can toggle the button to on, bright light. Try it again.
Okay, now it's on.
Now it's on.
Okay.
So Secretary Jones will show you the yellow card when you have 30 seconds left. Complete your thought, and then you'll see the red card at 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah,
All
I think I'll be pretty brief today. My name is Dave Rosenfeld. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a resident of Saline. I just wanted to speak to you tonight and voice my support for David Hayward for the open board position. I know David well, and I know him to be a highly intelligent, data-driven, and compassionate individual. All qualities that make them very well suited for the job. Also, like the district, David is committed to diversity and inclusion and to making SAS a safe and supportive place for all students to learn, and not just some. David is a member of the LGBT community themselves, and they also have 2 minority students currently enrolled in the district. They are passionate about equity for all, and they have demonstrated this fact beyond any doubt to this body through their advocacy and hard work over the last couple of years. I watched all of the interviews remotely last night, and there do appear to be a couple of candidates with some qualities and qualifications that might be valuable to SAS and the board. But David's qualifications speak for themselves, and in my humble opinion, they clearly stood out above the pack. One thing is for certain, none of the other candidates, at least none who are still in the running, have demonstrated anywhere near the commitment and dedication to Saline area schools and all of its students than David has over the years. For these reasons, I ask that you do what's best for the district and appoint David Hayward to the board position. Thank you.
Thank you. Now is our opportunity for the extended public comment that was granted to Lauren Kolaski. All right, excellent. Lauren, come on up. And just a reminder, yours is a little bit different, so you'll toggle to make sure the green light's on. Secretary Jones will give you the yellow card when you have 3 minutes left. Okay. And then you can complete your thoughts, and the red card is when 15 minutes is up, should you get up to 15 minutes.
Okay.
All right, if you can please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, I'm Lauren Kolaski. I'm the Environmental Supervisor at Washtenaw County Water Resources Public Works Division. I oversee the school recycling program. So I'm going to do a little bit of overview on it, a little about what we've done, historical stuff, and kind of moving forward. I don't believe you have heard from anyone in the county about this program in the past? No? Okay, great. All right. So we are a school recycling program. It's a program of the Board of Public Works, so it has a mission to increase recycling and diversion rates in K through 12 schools while also fostering a culture of recycling in the schools that pushes out into our larger community. our goal is not to just get children to recycle at home, but it's to take these skills and to teach them to their parents and hopefully siblings at home. A little time table of our program. It started in 2014 with a grant through Governor Rick Snyder, and then we're all the way up to 2022 now, but we've seen some great milestones in our program. So 2015, we've had 8 schools. We then presented to the Michigan Recycling Conference in 2017 about our program. In 2018, we showed that there was an increase in student recycling knowledge out of 11 out of the 14 schools for the 2017-18 school year. We've also increased our participation from the 8 pilot schools, which Saline was part of, and now we're up to about 29 schools in our program within Washtenaw County. We have one outlier in Milan who's on a different county, but they're in our program. So it's a little bit of a timeline history of what we've been working on these last few years at the county, and it is no longer grant funded, so this is strictly funded by the Board of Public Works at this time. That grant money ran out. If you see here, I had my employee put up a timeline of your school specifics. You can kind of see that Heritage was a pilot program in our program in 2015. The rest of the schools joined our program between, well, the middle schools in 2016 and 2019. The rest of the schools joined our recycling program. We have multiple partners, so it's not just the county. We contract with Recycling Arbor to haul our the recycling off-site into their MRF in Ann Arbor, so that's where they're taking the recycling. It used to go to Chelsea. And Ecology Center comes in and does the education. So there's a lot of education aspects of this program that we offer free of charge to the schools. Stevens Disposal is your cardboard recycling company. So it used to be Advanced Disposal, and we recently put an RFP out, and Stevens Disposal took it over. So they're the ones that are taking your cardboard. Here's all the public school districts that we participate with. We are only in public schools at this time. There was once where we were with a private school, but they moved out of the county. So what we do is we coordinate the infrastructure for collecting recyclables. So we provide all of the recycling containers that you might see in your classrooms. They're typically either cardboard boxes or the small blue recycling containers. We also provide posters of the recycling guidelines. So throughout the year, we coordinate with the Ecology Center and Recycling Arbor and us and make sure that we have up-to-date education materials to provide to the students and teachers and the custodial staff in the schools. We provide weekly recycling pickup services. We also provide free education for students and school staff. And we also, we get personalized feedback from these schools. We meet with them once a year in the beginning of the school year. We hear about how things are going, what problems we're having, and throughout the year, we're in constant communication with these schools when it comes to, vacations or not needing pickup or needing more pickup. Maybe it's the end of the year and you guys have a need for more recycling. We can accommodate that for your individual schools. I mentioned the annual kickoff meetings, and this starts before the school year starts, or maybe 1 or 2 weeks into the school year. So we reconnect with the school administration, recycling lead, and the custodial staff. So we like to get them all into a room. Pre-COVID, we would all meet in a room in the morning before school started. We discuss it, but now it's all on Zoom, so it's a little bit more flexible. We review the school's pickup service schedule and acceptable items for recycling. So we review that all once a year and make sure we have our schedules correct. We identify infrastructure needs, such as indoor bins and recycling guideline posters. And we share and encourage the free education sessions offered by the Ecology Center. So we have Ecology Center at these meetings, and they're presenting about the education services that they offer. So a little bit about our education sessions. We have student workshops and assemblies, staff training, after-school events, and green team assistance. We've had to adapt with COVID, so we've had to move from a fully in-person program to doing a hybrid program. So we're still kind of working that out and just trying to see what life is like now in schools post-COVID. So we have a lot of virtual options for the teachers and the custodial staff to view and use, but we also are coming into schools if it's requested. We offer an annual recycling art contest. This last year was one of my favorites. You will see that Pleasant Ridge was a winner of one of our contests, and if you actually were driving down 94 at some point, you would have seen the billboard with the students' artwork on it. So we did an upper elementary or upper education and lower education contests. So we did, these were our winners, which we thought was great. The other one we published and posted on social media and did a press release for. I don't know if how we're going to do it each year. It's not consistent, but we love getting these posters, and we set kind of a theme, and we are really excited about having the students work on these programs. We broke it down by the years, and you can see how much we're recycling. 2018-19 was a big year. 2019-20, not so much. And then last year we saw a little bit of a decrease, but that was due to COVID. Nobody was in the schools, so we weren't collecting materials. And then we wanted to talk, just show the cost of the program and how much it's cost us over the years to run this program, specifically for Saline area schools. So I didn't put all the programs in here. And you see we are getting a reduction of cost, but I think a lot of that has to do with COVID and the fact that they're not in school. We had a lot of canceled services. We have skip services. You're doing hybrid. We go every other week instead of every week. But every time we pick up recycling or cardboard or do education, the county does receive an invoice for that service. During the past 3 school years, Saline has participated in 12 staff trainings, 17 student workshops, and 5 school events. The future of the program. We want to shift our focus from operation to building a culture of recycling in the schools. We have felt like we really honed in on the operational stuff. We got the contractors great, we got the infrastructure, we got the system going. It works, it's like a fine oiled machine, but what we haven't found is that we have gotten a culture of recycling yet with the education, the free education. It's just something that's not being taken advantage of. And so we are re-envisioning our program. It's been around for a while, so we are looking to require the use of educational offerings to receive full funding. So that what that could look like is having a minimum education requirement or a cost share with the school district to continue to run the program. The finer details of that haven't been worked out or decided, and as my director will make some more decisions. We'll meet with the decision makers and the school facilities director to discuss that a little bit more. We have not made any final decisions or approached anyone about it. Ensuring a team of people is supporting the recycling goals in each school, not just one person. We find that one person is not enough. If they leave, they switch, they go on maternity leave, they get sick, we don't have that contact at the school, so we don't have somebody to coordinate with. We don't know about contamination. We don't have that, so we wanted to build a group of people at the schools who are working with us. And we want to empower students to initiate more ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And we will connect with our school contacts to collaborate with them as well as school administrators, curriculum coordinators, and decision makers to identify how we can achieve these goals for the recycling within the schools. So that's the end of my presentation. Do you have questions for me?
Thanks, Lauren. With extended public comment and public
Yes.
comment, the policy is we don't ask questions with that.
Good. I like that
So
better anyways.
don't be offended.
Nope,
It's just,
nope.
it's absolutely a procedural
Okay.
thing. But I know we've emailed and you have contact. If
Yes.
you did need to follow up, you could send that to Dr. Lodge and
Yes.
coordinate with the correct individuals if you needed to have additional conversations.
There is a website as well too, which I'll send a link to you tomorrow, Jennifer, with that explains this program a little bit more
Okay.
specific to the entire county.
All right.
So I'm done. I appreciate your time.
Excellent. Thank
you,
you.
guys.
And you can go ahead and push the button off for audio. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. Moving on to response to public comment, we always like to hear from our community. So sassboard@salineschools.org or the Let's Talk icon on the Saline Area Schools website is great. Feedback in general, I was just really happy to see so many community members participate in the ESSER survey and participate in the Zoom as well. And it was also fun to look at and hear about all of the Snow Day Steve. Buzz, good feedback. Apparently that was a positive move for a few days. So well done, Dr. Lodge. Moving on to revisions or approval of agenda. Items may be added or deleted from the meeting agendas, and/or the order of items may be changed at the request of an individual board member or the superintendent. The agendas must be approved before proceeding further. I'd like to please entertain a motion to approve the revised agenda, and the revision being at the request of trustee Eastep from the consent agenda, removing item F and pulling it up to item E for action, would become a recommended motion to approve a 3-year term to represent Region 7 at the MESB Board of Directors. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Michael, thank you. Support. Candace, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our student showcase, Julian had, first of all, Julian did a wonderful job last night, so let me just state that again. But his hockey game was rescheduled, so he is at hockey. Go Hornets. So Dr. Latch, would you like to introduce our guests?
Yes, we. How about now? There we go. Okay, thanks. So I'm going to introduce tonight advisor Mr. Bill Elliott, who's been with National Honor Society for quite some time. He's also one of our English teachers at the high school. He's done a tremendous job of supporting this group of outstanding students. And he's going to kick us off, and then we're going to have the other students introduce themselves and go from there. We're excited that you can be here tonight.
My design actually was to let them do all the talking, but since Steve threw me up here, so really these folks have done all the hard work, all the heavy lifting here, and I often leave that to my officers every year to do just that. And so I can't be prouder of how the year's gone so far. There's, as you all know, challenges, and I'm always pleased to see how well folks step up, and this year is certainly extraordinary in that department. So without further ado, I know they're going to introduce themselves, and they've got some things that they'd like to share with you. Thanks. I'm getting out of the way.
Hi everyone, thank you for having us today. We're Saline National Honor Society. My name is Jason Chen and I'm the president.
My name is Jason Hu and I'm the vice president.
My name's Maggie Robbins and I'm the treasurer.
My name's Abby Phillips, and I'm the historian.
And my name is James Steerley, and I'm one of the secretaries.
So today we've just come here to showcase what our club has done this year. So over the last year, our chapter had to adapt a little bit because of COVID, obviously. We are a chapter of around 150 students with approximately like 75 juniors and 75 seniors. And over the last year, we served approximately 3,000 total hours, which is a little bit less than what we typically do. But obviously, because of COVID, we had limited opportunities, but we still ended up getting about 3,000 hours. We have 4 major annual projects that we will discuss later in this presentation. So this is just an overview of our presentation. So our general mission is just to foster a culture of youth-driven service within Saline High School for the betterment of the entire Saline community.
So within our club, we have 2 main structures of organization. Our highest student-led organization is the NHS Council, which you see before you right now. And this is comprised of our president, our vice president, a treasurer, 2 secretaries. One of our secretaries couldn't be with us tonight, unfortunately, and a historian. And of course, we do have specific duties to each of our roles, but most of our duties are shared. And so these shared duties include planning meetings. We have a committee meeting and a full chapter meeting each month, so we do a lot of the planning on what the agenda is going to be for that. We also organize service opportunities for our members in our club. We also hold these members accountable for the hours that they pledge to get when they join NHS. And we also manage our funds to make sure our fundraising is on track. And lastly, we try to participate in as many service opportunities as possible. As the main role models in this club, we really aim to try to be at almost every single service opportunity if we can. And next, because we have so many projects throughout the year, we do need a bit of help with organizing these events. So we have 4 main committees of about approximately 5 students. So our first committee is our blood drive committee, and this committee helps plan and organize 3 yearly blood drives. We just had one this month, a few weeks ago. And so this committee really helps with communicating with the American Red Cross and making these drives possible. We also have our community drive committee, which organizes our canned food drive that we have every year. We recently had that in December, and we have a backpack drive in the spring. And we recently added this year a book drive in September where we collect test prep books and children's books. We also have a community outreach and education committee, which really focuses on initiating tutoring within the high school and the middle school. And this committee also reaches out to Saline area schools if they need any help with staffing any events, and also the Saline Rec Center to help with those events. And lastly, we have our fundraising projects and event planning committee. And this committee is really what drives all of our fundraising in this club. Currently, we're doing a carnation sale for Valentine's Day, and we do poinsettia sales in December. And we also do t-shirt sales within our club. This committee also helps a lot with initiating new ideas for fundraising if we do need that extra fundraising. And a lot of this fundraising goes to funding our projects like the backpack drive and the canned food drive. And lastly, they also help with planning our NHS induction ceremonies and our meet and greets so that our club really bonds together so that we can have a great year of service together.
So the first thing we wanted to discuss today was the book drive, which is a new community drive that we started to do this year, and we are hoping to continue to do annually. And we started this with the goal of getting the resources, which were test prep books and children's books, to those who may not have been able to afford it. And we ended up collecting over 100 test prep books, which have been organized into a new section of the high school library so that students can easily access them to prepare for their AP tests or SAT, ACT, and other standardized tests. And we also collected over 500 children's books, which were donated to the Children's Literacy Network in Ann Arbor. And yeah, we're hoping to continue this drive every year so we can keep on getting these resources to those who need it the most.
Okay, so as I mentioned previously, we have 3 annual blood drives, one in October, one in February, and we're going to have one coming up in the spring. And though the blood drive does have a very large role in organizing and managing these drives, they staff the drives all day. We also have many of our students within the club staffing these drives as well. So as I said earlier, we partner with the American Red Cross for these drives, and we hold them at the school. You can see in the picture on the slide that we are in the auxiliary gym of the high school running this drive. And so we have students working with checking in donors, and we have students working with the canteen, which is making sure that donors have food and juice after they donate blood so that they don't pass out or anything. So throughout the year, we've had our 2 drives, and we've collected 139 pints from these 2 drives, and we've had over 160 participants in these drives volunteering and helping, a large portion of these being from our club. And so our average is about 49 pints per drive, and we estimate that about 420 lives could have been saved with these pints that we've gathered from these 2 drives.
Okay, so every year, Saline NHS runs 2 main community drives that are required by our membership to participate in. The first of which being the canned food drive, which this school year took place on December 11th. What we do is our members go out to different neighborhoods in the community and distribute bags, which are then collected a week later on the date listed there. after the residents have filled them all with different canned food, box food, and other household items. And they are all brought to Saline Area Social Services. All donations go to them. And this year, we collected, they counted 11,484 pounds of food, as well as additional household items. And we got those from 29 different neighborhoods in our community. And social services estimated that, estimated that approximately 9,500 meals would be provided from all of those donations. So we're very proud of how this event turned out. And we prioritize this one a lot every year as one of our 2 huge required drives. Thank you.
So the second of our big main drives each year for NHS is our backpack drive. In this drive, it's similar to the canned food drive. We send out bags to each of the neighborhoods that are on our roster, and then our students will go back and pick up bags that have been filled with school supplies. We then take these school supplies and we fill them in backpacks that we buy using our funding from our student fees or points out of sales, anything that Maggie mentioned earlier. Last year, we filled approximately 180 backpacks, and we donated these backpacks to 2 different communities. One of them was Samaritas, which is a foster care agency. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And then the other one was the Washtenaw EPHY program, which supports and advocates for students who are homeless or in transition. So that way they can have the materials they need to have a successful school year.
Cool. So just to wrap up the activities we do, we also have some additional initiatives that are kind of miscellaneous. One of the big ones is we partner with some of the lower schools, like the Saline Middle School. We recently had a blanket tying event, and all those blankets will go to Mott's Children's Hospital, which is really cool. Outside of that, we also work with the Saline Rec Center. We've had Halloween Spooktacular and Trunk or Treat. We also do like Nerf wars and tea parties with them, so it's a lot of fun. And then we also just do a lot of miscellaneous community service. So we shovel snow and rake leaves for a lot of the elderly people around Saline who can't afford it. And we do that through Saline Area Social Services. What did I? Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, now would be a great time to hear them. And if you have any additional ones, you can always contact our advisor, whose email is down there.
Thank you. Very well done. 3,000 service hours is excellent. So even though you recognize that it's a little less because of the COVID situation, please don't minimize the impact that that had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael.
I do have a few things. First of all, Maggie, I've seen a lot of you at the blood donor clinics, and you've been all over the district, and I'm a regular at those. I just wanted to say, Maggie noted 139 units. That is, according to the Red Cross Society, remarkable for a school. And I mean, we've heard this a couple of years ago. I just want to reiterate, you're doing a fantastic job there. And I had no idea you were behind the daddy-daughter dance. I was a participant in that a long time ago. And I do have a bone to pick regarding the snow shoveling. Now, I was offering snow shoveling lessons in front of my house, and none of you took me up on the offer. So yeah, next time, we have a big snow, right? It was nice to see you all here.
Is that like a dad joke,
Yeah.
Michael? I don't know. They think it's like a dad joke. Yeah, Jen.
Thank you so much for your service. I know it's making a big impact on our entire community. And I just also really appreciate your mentoring through your tutoring programs and other activities that you're doing, and how that really, your mentorship and your role modeling is having an impact on students well before they're eligible for National Honor Society. So I just appreciate, it takes an effort to even get into National Honor Society. We know that you have to be extremely dedicated and diligent in your studies, but then to add 3,000 hours and all of the other things that you're doing, it's an incredible effort. So congratulations. I do want to say, since we didn't say her name, but Maya Prasad was one of my daughter's teammates, so I recognized her name on this list, and I know she's not able to be here tonight, but if you'll extend our thanks to her also. And then I just also want to extend a big thank you to Mr. Elliott. Thank you for your continued mentorship of these young people and young people throughout the high school. I know all 3 of the Miller kids speak of you very fondly, so thank you for your dedication and going the extra mile for these kids. So.
I just want to echo it real quick too, right? Like, appreciative of the effort. This doesn't just happen, right? These are extraordinary students who make a commitment to their school, and they want to make their school a better place. And as a teacher myself, and National Honor Society, and seeing the work that you do, I just want you to know how appreciative I am of 3,000 hours and whatever we can, like, the world is a better place for you having done the work that you're doing, and keep it up, and thank you. I appreciate it.
Everything that they said. But yeah, thank you for all that you do in the schools and in the community. So that was a really great presentation. Thanks.
I'll just say one thing, that in your mission, you talked about fostering a culture of youth-driven service. That's exactly what you're doing. You're living your mission. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you all. You are welcome to stay, or if you have homework to do or other activities, we totally understand and respect if you need to leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our first scheduled report, Continue to Learn, Dr. Latch.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to be doing this one in consultation with Anna Britnell, our Director of Communications and Community Relations. And this is going to be looking at a variety of different things as we continue to learn. So we'll start off with our standard COVID update to see where we're at. So the good news is we are definitely seeing a decrease in COVID cases around across the county. Pretty significantly, actually. However, we're still in this high phase, so the time is not now to let down our guard. We continue with our mitigation strategies and moving forward. In terms of looking at our counties in comparison, we continue to see how Washtenaw is leading in a lot of areas, in good statistics here, that our positivity rate is down and that our vaccination rate continues to be the highest of these counties with the biggest population in Michigan. And also the daily new cases per 100,000 is lower than these other surrounding counties as well. This next stat, I think, gives a pretty good picture of what's happening. And this is what was told was going to happen with this latest variant, but it actually is happening in this really sharp increase and a really sharp decrease. And so we're glad to be on the decline here. However, I do want to point out, if you look at where we're at, we're still in a really high state in comparison to the previous couple years of the pandemic. So we continue to look at that, we continue to monitor it, but we feel like we're moving in the right direction in terms of our current phase. As we look at the dashboard with Karen Hervey and Anna do a continued really good job updating. This is the overall count, the summary for yesterday actually. And if you look at this count, and this is even slightly elevated because we're coming off of a 5-day weekend with all those snow days. So in essence, we expect a pretty significant decrease throughout the week. And even with this is a fairly small number in comparison to the total population of the students and staff in the district right now. This next slide is in response to some questions we had at one of the previous board meetings, that there still are procedures for higher risk settings. A lot of the lower risk settings where we talk about lunch and the classroom and buses, they don't have the protocols in place anymore in terms of isolation. But these higher risk settings, there are a few, and I asked Karen Hervey to put down some of the areas which she's seen, and so I'm going to give some specific examples here. The first one is certain extracurricular activities, which includes specific contact sports, and that would be if there's a COVID positive athlete on the girls basketball team, for example, unvaccinated players would have to quarantine or participate in test to stay. So that's a different nuance for this higher risk activity. In terms of the classroom settings, where masks are not or cannot be worn, and in this case, an example is preschool and certain special education settings, that this would also involve students that would need to quarantine for 10 days from last exposure, which is different than the low risk exposures. And then finally, what's considered an outbreak or a cluster. If there are 3 or more positive cases within a classroom, everyone would be considered a potential close contact because they would be considering that room being an area of potential spread. And then the unvaccinated students would have to quarantine or participate in test to stay. So those are 3 examples of higher risk settings that we're still following a more stringent process on determining isolation. I also wanted to draw back to the plan that Saline Area Schools originally put out in August, in that we're still going to be following this as we connect with the Washtenaw County Health Department mask mandate. And so to update you where we're at with that, the Washtenaw County Health Department has said that when or if we get into moderate transmission phase, then districts then move back into whatever plan they put in place at the beginning of the school year. That would be the case for the schools, which would mean if we were to move into the moderate or low phase, now that every student in the schools, ages 5 and up has had a chance to be vaccinated, all age groups it would be mask optional. Whereas at the beginning of the year, it wasn't going to be mask optional for the under 12 population who hadn't had a chance to be vaccinated. But now, as we move into the spring months, and again, I can't predict what specifically is going to happen, but if we get into this moderate phase of transmission, the Washtenaw County Health Department has said that if we get into that phase for 14 days or longer, then they would rescind the mask mandate and districts would be able to operate with their plans that they previously developed at the beginning of the school year. Now I'm shifting over to this ESSER discussion, which is different than the COVID update, but we had a really good meeting the other night with the community via Zoom, and we had, I felt, really good participation, over 30 community members, to gather some feedback. We also did what's known as a Mentimeter feedback survey, and we started to see the top 5 ideas that the community has for spending some of these funds. In particular, there's $830,000 approximately to spend out of ESSER 3. There are these different pots of money that we're receiving as it relates to COVID relief funding, so to speak. And we are looking at February 15th as the submission date. I've been working with Miranda and Kara, Anna, and so forth to put together the thoughts and ideas from the community, and we're going to be putting that into a submission plan by February 15th. And then on February 22nd, we're going to do a report for the Board of Education so we can specifically talk about how those funds are being spent. Okay, this is pretty hard to read, but I want to give you an idea of how this Mentimeter survey works. In essence, there were 12 areas where you are allowed to spend funds within this ESSER 3 range of money. In addition, 20% of the ESSER 3 funds need to be spent on learning loss, which is approximately 166,000 of these funds. And so these were the top 5 areas out of the people who participated in the survey. In short, the first one is this notion that districts can pay for some staff salary so that you would be able to maintain continuity of services. So that's what number one talks about. The second one is in the area of, I might even have to just jump over here, social emotional wellness, mental health is the second area. And then learning loss is 3. Unique needs of children. So 4 is more specifically looking at marginalized groups of students and providing support. And then educational technology, licenses, Zoom, various supports that we put for Lincoln Learning to offer kids online options at the elementary level. Anyway, these were the 5 areas that came out as prioritized by the community. Our plan that will be submitted on the 15th will recognize specifically those top 5 areas, and we'll jump into some of the, I guess I'd say lower areas as well. So you're going to get a more detailed report soon at the next board meeting. And now I'd like to introduce Anna Britnell, who's going to come and talk a little bit about the teaching spotlight that working on kind of a campaign that she's developed, which is really great.
Thank you, Dr. Lodge. With some of the actually ESSER conversations that we've had the last couple of weeks, we've been able to discuss one of our points of pride over the last year or so is that we've been able to sustain in-person instruction. And we talked about the whole child and how those extracurriculars that we've been able to do because we're in person, the athletics and the activities are all ongoing. And we sat and thought about how great that is for the student experience. And then when we circled back to the core of what we do, the teaching and learning, Dr. Lodge wanted to find a way to really highlight what's going on in our classrooms. I think every stakeholder across the board has given education and teaching and learning a little bit more attention than they probably ever have before. Everyone's hearing about learning loss and wanting to know what their local district is doing, no matter kind of where they stand in the picture. So that's kind of where this stemmed from in our conversations, and the result is what we've been working on. So again, we're highlighting our teaching staff, our great teaching staff, and celebrating the student learning that's happening within the classrooms. The process is pretty simple. We're connecting with staff, people that I may know personally, Ben may know personally, that we see have things going on in the classroom that might be noteworthy. We reach out to them and find out, hey, do you have something going on that you'd like to highlight, or we'd like to celebrate for students. We do get a little help from our friends. David and Kara and Jen Nelson obviously have a lot of connections within the building, so we've started to lean on them to get us into places maybe we wouldn't be familiar with, and some of the things that are happening, K through 26 across the whole district. So the goal for Dr. Lodge is to be able to highlight every single teacher. It may take a couple years, so hang tight, but I think it's been a month and we've been in 20 different classrooms already, and it's been a lot of fun. So this is kind of the result of the visit. So what we do is we go in and we spend anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes with them, depending on the lesson and how, what's going on. I always joke, Ben's a former educator, so sometimes he'll like to hang on like half the day and just watch people do their thing. And I just leave him and then come back and get him later. I take a couple really good pictures, which actually has been nice. I've been talking to Kara to evolve into a database. We don't have a lot of photos or a master database in the district for photos, so that has been a secondary benefit of doing this. We do kind of joke that hopefully in a couple years this will be outdated photos because they'll all have masks and we'll have to go do this again, but that's fine. Get a couple good photos, and then actually I circle back to the staff member and ask them for a quote. It can either be about specifically the lesson that they were teaching, or maybe just the topic or the focus area of what they're doing that day. I kind of leave it up to them. And then we post this first so that people can kind of understand who we're highlighting and what we saw that day. And then 24 to 48 hours later, we go ahead and post this short video that Ben puts together based on kind of the vision that we talk about when we visit. So I'm going to let him play that Twitter video really quick. This was Corbin Brown at the high school. He did an awesome, this is our first visit actually, it was a physics lesson. You can just click right where it says social media, Ben. Down, down, down. On the slide. Nope, on the slide. There you go. Thanks, Ben. All right, so short and sweet, but we did this last time, didn't we? There we go. Short and sweet, but we do feel like that's how we get our information now, right? 100 and X so many characters and 50-second videos. So we do feel like we've got a lot of great feedback from staff. Staff have started to reach out and even just say, hey, I've got something cool. So that helps with the connection piece as well. So this is something fun. So we've probably done 20 visits, like I said, and what we didn't expect is some of these unintended consequences, which has been awesome and have actually evolved into more content for us beyond just these short spotlights. So just a couple examples. We went over to Woodland Meadows to highlight the Leader in Me team, which is their leadership group tied to the Lighthouse or the Leader in Me program that they're doing. It's the Lighthouse leadership team, and from there, we heard some of the things that they were talking about, and there was a need. They're reading a book for Black History Month where each of the students are reading a different page, and we thought, well, what do you want to do with it? And they said, well, we'd like to film, every kid and then play it for Woodland Meadows. So we were able to connect with them and then go back and film a project for them that benefited the school. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to go in. They have a social media team of third graders that I'm going to give a little mini lesson about what social media is. So that was kind of a neat thing. Here at the Alternative High School at Liberty, Brad Wilkie had a service learning class that we went to and met this very nice woman, Joan Kelly, who she has been teaching these students for many, many years how to knit in their class and have been knitting full-size baby hats that have been donated to Mott and I had no idea what this story was. So we're actually going to do, it was amazing to see her in there working with these kids, and the hats are itty-bitty and they're awesome. So we're going to go back and do a full feature story on her and the time and the commitment that she's given, completely volunteer to our students and actually teaching, a whole unit with them. So that was awesome. And then last week we got to go into the life skills room at Saline High School, which I would encourage every single person to do if they ever have time to do so. It was probably a 40-minute visit. It was their morning meeting, and it was phenomenal seeing what happened in that classroom. And then they actually invited us back to do an off-site visit where they're that day they were going to lunch or going to Costco for lunch, and they do all different things in the community. So we're going to go back and get on a bus and follow that group and see what they're doing. But that was a great visit as well. And then just a couple more points. This will obviously continue for a couple years, but some other campaigns coming up is the foundation is obviously, we talked about $98,000 worth of grants that have been posted as of January, and those grants will start to be implemented in the next couple months. So we're going to work with them to highlight some of the grant implementation and what happens in the spring. Capital projects, you'll hear a little bit more today from Principal Raft, and there'll be a lot of coverage of that. And then I just wanted to point out for those of you that don't know, sometimes the person behind the camera doesn't get a lot of credit, and Ben Goodman started last July with us as the digital production coordinator, which you may not know is a hybrid position between the schools and the city. He is constantly running all over the place, doing different projects for different groups, and he's the creative brain behind all of this and does a phenomenal job, and I would not be able to do any of it without Ben. So thanks, Ben. And I think that's it.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Anna and Steve. Did you get a drone? How'd you do the aerial at the beginning of the high school? Yeah, that's like a good shot.
You're sitting next to the drone flyer.
Oh my God.
So Michael, some of that might have been your footage.
Free of charge.
You can come and help me crash it any day.
There you go. As long as somebody pays for repairs.
That's right. Don't break anything. Anyone have any questions or comments for Anna or Steve? Yeah.
So I want to, first of all, I love the fact that we are highlighting the extraordinary effort of our staff members and our students and our volunteers. We talked about this at the beginning as a PR piece, but later in the meeting, we're going to talk about enrollment. And so enrollment, students, is what we do, right? And so for me, I actually see this as a tremendous marketing tool as well to promote all the excellence that's happening in our programs for people that are prospecting for a great school district to enroll their children. So I want to, obviously say bravo on that, but I love the marketing potential of this as well as a tool for us to look at what we do, look at what our students and our staff just thriving. So anyway, so for me, I see it through that lens quite a bit.
That's our treasurer and finance chair, Brad Kirby. Jenny?
I know that you mentioned in the presentation that you are, that it's going to take a couple of years and you're working your way around the district and working with teachers in a variety of spaces. It would be really wonderful, I think, I echo what Brad said too, just the tremendous efforts of our teachers and the work that they're doing every day. But we also know, and especially in the last couple of years, we know that it's been a team effort of people in our district, even beyond our teachers. And especially in a day and age when we're looking for support in roles like bus driving and buildings and grounds and food service and all of those things too. So when there is room to expand, I'd love to see some of the efforts. And I know that there are people who have been in those positions who it's their passion. And maybe custodial work is not my passion or yours, but the people who do it with such passion that it makes the experience for our students even greater and better. So I love the spotlights that you're doing, and I hope that we can expand it to see some of those people too. Like Betty Yankee, one of our unsung heroes back there. So that's one other thing. And then I just wanted to thank Dr. Lutch for addressing the graph is really helpful to see how things are moving and the trends that we're seeing. And I've been getting a lot of questions like, we're starting to see that glimmer of maybe as things, because we had that steep decrease again, we're starting to get questions about maybe sometime in the future we're going to reach that moderate or low level. And so I appreciate that you brought that back up and clarified that now that the majority of our students have had access to vaccinations, that would change slightly from fall. So thank you for that clarification, and we'll continue to hope that glimmer is in the near future.
I had a quick question for Anna, or maybe Steve as well. So on the features, have you thought about ways to bring in student voice to that? So to feature some of what they love about the classroom, or what they're learning or engaging in, just to feature that as a part of this marketing process.
Sure. I think these are specific to the teachers, just as a lift me up for the work that they've been doing, and obviously the impact trickles down to the students. But going back to those unintended consequences, this has also evolved into we're working with Principal Washington at the middle school to do her elective videos for transition night. So 5th to 6th, what do your 6th grade electives look like? And then 6th to 7, 8, what do those electives look like? And that's going to involve student voice. So there's so many spinoffs that are coming from these. And Brad and Jenny, this was 100% Dr. Lotch's idea to do this whole thing. So we're working through it, and these things that are coming off of it are just as awesome as just the spotlights in general. And a lot of that will include the students.
Well, hold on a second. I said I would like to do this, but Anna's figuring out how to do it. I'm not really involved in that at all.
It's a team. To build off what Candace said about students, I was also thinking about student voice, but I was thinking about student participation. So have you considered talking to Nate Bush and kind of getting that group involved at the high school, or maybe the multimedia classes at the middle school to help with production and kind of creation?
Yeah, I think it just depends on, the timing of, you also don't want to do too much of anything at once where it gets watered down or one post doesn't get enough attention. So that 2-year timeline is really just to stretch it out, to allow everybody to kind of get a couple days in the limelight. I don't know that we need to do these any faster. We're probably already doing them too fast. We have so much right now that we're backed up. We went to a room yesterday and I was like, well, you might not see it for a couple weeks, so don't call. It's going to be a while. So we're already backed up. So it's a little bit of just being sensitive to giving them enough time. But again, Ben, on top of what he's already doing, he also oversees our live crew, which is a group of students who does, our athletic events and our performing arts stuff that happens in the auditorium. So there's lots of student involvement across the board, for sure.
Any other questions or comments?
I really appreciate the live feeds. When I can't be to something, it's really nice to be able to catch it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to enrollment report, if you want to stay up there maybe, and Miranda?
Yep. So we're going to kick it off with Miranda Owsley, our Assistant Superintendent of Finance. She's going to go through quite a few of the initial slides, and then I'll do some of the later part of the slides. Oh, we need to back it up to the front.
So we continually talk in our finance committee and watch our enrollment trends, over numerous years backwards and forwards, but we really wanted to bring to the full board in this meeting and kind of talking about some of the things we've seen, specifically looking at old trends and also COVID and how it's affected our enrollment. So in general, enrollment can get very complicated, and you'll hear words like FTE and head count. And for these slides, and we really tried to bring it up to 10-foot view and really focus into our primary programs. There's a lot of extra programs we do in the ECSE programs and on our young adult and different things like that. And so we're just trying to focus on our main programs and our buildings that we kind of staff for those programs. So you see in the 2020 and the 2021 school year, we lost 179 students. And then the 2021-2022 school year, 101 students. So now in a big picture, kind of moving that to money, is that $8,700 is our per pupil foundation allowance. And so it's kind of putting it into money perspective. You'll remember in the 2021 school year though, we were held harmless and the state used a super blend, as they called it, for our funding model. But this just kind of gives you a broad overview that these last 2 years were kind of significant in terms of students. So as we roll into this slide, and I want to kind of talk again that this is big picture head count of students. So in our main programs as well. So you'd see, I've only taken it through 12th. We have students in our district that go through 26 and as young as, even 3 years old, but we really are focusing on those. And you'll see this is 6 years of actuals, and then the very column to the right is that P is just a projection, and all that really is you'll notice on the numbers a straight roll forward. So just taking the kindergarten class of 327 students and putting those kids directly into first grade. And then with this idea, we just kind of want to look at this whole picture and notice in the top half of this chart, we have classes of 300s. And you look at the bottom half of this chart, we have a lot of classes in the 400s. So it's a general trend that we have seen through many years. So this is following a specific class to kind of show you a little bit of that trend. So if we follow the class of 2025, highlighted in yellow right there in fourth grade, they had 381 students. Then as that class moved into fifth grade, there's 395 students all the way down to their 8th grade year, so it's a gain of 35 kids for that time period. If you roll down to the ones underlined, the same thing happens in that class of 2026. In 5th grade, they had 370 students. As they roll down through 9th grade, they are with 436 students. So it's not always, it's just a general trend. Not obviously every class does that in every single spot, but an overarching trend that we see at Saline. So now we're going to focus into specific data using these grade periods where it's a specific, in the top left you see 5th grade in 16-17 had 370 students, and if you follow the arrow down, those kids moving into 6th grade, That class then was now 389 students, which in the yellow is illustrated with that gain of 19 students. So if you follow along the second arrow, you'd say take the 395 students in 5th grade, they move to 406 the next year. And so follow along the yellow, that same 5th to 6th transition, we gain 5, 1, and then 0. And if we go down to the middle section in there, that transitions between our 6th and 7th grade students, that first year, 19 students, then a gain of only 10, 9, and even in the 2 COVID years, we had a -2 and a -5. So you kind of see a general similar trend in the 7th and 8th grade years that, although not as exactly consistent, you see that it's still kind of lowering. And that really zooms in to kind of show you some of these effects that we're seeing lightly throughout the years. And we move up to the middle school as a whole. So if we look at the middle school in 16-17, they had 1,212 students. And then in 17-18, 1,226. So that's showing that gain of 14 kids. And then we roll all the way over to our COVID year when we started the year in hybrid in 2021. That was when we still were receiving funding in that whole kind of hold harmless super blend time. We had lost 58 students, and in this year, those 60 students. So one of the big things I wanted you to notice too is before we move to the next slide is also kind of look left to look right and notice how many more 300 classes you're seeing as they're rolling down there. We see some that were in the 400s in the beginning section, and then all the way over to the projections, or this year and next year, we only are in classes of 300s. So then as we look to the high school, we kind of look at a big, broad picture as well of just the students. We notice that in general, it's not exact trends that we see, but we continually just see these trends in the kind of pull down from middle school. So in general, if we see that it rolls forward without that gain in 9th grade, that 300 level classes will be starting to roll into the high school, and we see that same trend we see in middle school, if it continues down, that they'll continue to lose students until those 300 classes kind of get through, and then they're all at that level. So in general, go ahead. This piece.
Thank you. Thanks, Miranda. So to put this in perspective, this pattern's been going on for about 10 years. We've been talking a lot about how we've had incoming classes at 350-ish and exiting senior classes at 450 or greater. Well, eventually that catches up, and now we're at that point where we're moving through all of that. And so we've been almost getting ready for this for quite some time, and there's going to be a number of things that we need to do to address this, but it's not all bad. I think sometimes people look at, well, the district is losing population and this is going to really impact the bottom line financially, which is true if we don't make some natural adjustments, but we're prepared to make those adjustments through attrition. And so we look at the second part here where it says, how does it happen? Attrition, you adjust your staffing model. So as we see now that the enrollment loss is more focused at the secondary level, which basically means the middle school and the high school, we do start to adjust. And if we recognize that there are 100 less students at the high school, then as teachers exit the organization, whether they're getting different jobs or they're retiring, we wouldn't replace those teachers. But we feel like we have a sound strategy to do that. We're not going to be laying off teachers. We have a method in which we can adjust the staffing model accordingly so that it just helps change the structure of the district over time. And the good news is we also have some of these increases in per pupil expenditure that have happened over the last year or so, and a potential increase next year. In addition, we have some ESSER funds, which one allowable use is to maintain the quality of service, that you continue to not have to make drastic cuts. You can use some of those extra funds. Anyway, so we have time to continue to adjust our model without impacting the services that we'll provide our students, and we're very confident in which we'll be able to do that. In terms of why we see the student loss, we're speculating, but we feel like we have a pretty good handle on why. There's more school options now. We have seen, some more parents in the pandemic environment recently, homeschooling, and/or there are some parents choosing to go to, whether it's private school options or other school options. That's occurring throughout the pandemic. But the big one really is this declining birth rates. We've been getting these smaller classes coming in for a while. And what Miranda was referring to is this adjustment of, if we get used to having classes of 350, okay, then that helps us develop a new normal on the size that the district will be. And then eventually we think we'll see that uptick more in the elementary age students. And then you start to build back up the model over time. The other key factor, though, is what we're calling the 6th and 9th grade capture rate. For years, and it's still the case, these are transition years where more families are having their kids come into the district for a variety of reasons. Sometimes they're sending students to private schools that they don't have a high school option, and they come back to Saline High School. Other times they send students to elementary option and they want to come in at the middle school level. That's still happening, but not at the level that it once was. Because we used to get really a greater boom at 6th and 9th grade. That's a lesser number of kids coming in now. So that's also contributing to some of the loss of enrollment or our inability to capture as many students at those levels. So there's a combination of things happening here. The biggest one is these smaller classes, they're finally working their way up to the secondary level. And the second factor is not capturing as many students coming in at the 6th and 9th grade level. Questions for myself or Miranda? Susan?
So, I have a question about looking at, if you all have looked at like different districts and their numbers and decline in enrollments.
I think enrollment decline is a trend in many of the school districts. I can't say for certain everywhere, but my conversations with other superintendents around the county do suggest that enrollment loss, especially over the last 2 and 3 years, has been pretty significant, more significant for some districts than others. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, as well as the state as a whole. So in general, as they budget their year, they budget down students, and we lose as a state every year a little bit. We lose it, some of the people moving out of the state during different times, but also just the birth rates is a lot lower, and over time that kind of spills out over that 12-year period as well.
Thank you all.
I had a question about as you were talking about the 6th and 9th grade capture rates. I remember historically that was a time that we were getting more kids. But I know I'm asking for you to refresh my memory on this. So school of choice typically, at least when it first started, was focused on more lower elementary. And so I know that we've expanded school of choice since then. But I'm wondering about, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like recruitment. We have a lot of like specialty programming and a lot of opportunities that exist here that might not exist in other places. So are we working toward maybe the efforts that we used to put towards lower elementary, expanding those efforts to include with greater diligence the upper grades?
Yeah, actually we had a school of choice meeting today with our administrative staff, and that was one of the discussion points. That is a strategy to focus more in the 6th and 9th grade, which I think you'll see, because we're going to have a school of choice discussion at the next board meeting, and we'll we'll all kick around some of those concepts of not bringing in as many students at the lowest level or kindergarten level, and potentially bringing in more at the 6th and 9th grade level. So that is something that we were looking at and talking about today.
Well, and then just hand in hand with that, as we see numbers decline, we've done a lot of work, I think even over the past 20 years, to really enhance programming and to specialize programming. I know the PLTW offerings and Dr. Rose programming options. I mean, I could go on, but the opportunities that we have for students are sometimes, my kids just did their scheduling and I was like, you have what? Like, what options do you have? So I know the opportunities that we have for a variety of programs that are setting kids up for success at the next level. Are you anticipating through, I know you mentioned through attrition and all of those things, but can we maintain those programs with less staff?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question, because if you have fewer teachers at the high school level, for example, are you able to offer as many options? That is something that would need to be looked at. I mean, if you don't have as many teachers, it would likely lead to not as many options. It will be something we have to talk about, and we will do so. So, yeah, you can't say that you can offer as many options when you have fewer staff. And that's something that we'll have to talk about in terms of how we would do that and still give kids and allow kids to have this really great breadth of options.
Okay, so ongoing conversation there, just as you're
Yes.
making decisions. Perfect, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, quick, I just wanted to say thank you very much, Assistant Superintendent Owsley, for the deep dive pre-pandemic, going back a few years, because it did look like we were experiencing loss back then. Of course, the pandemic has exacerbated a lot of those numbers, but a loss of 279 isn't, to me, doesn't seem quite as terrifying now, because it was part of an ongoing trend. And I'm delighted to know that we are adjusting our staffing model as we move forward. So thank you for the numbers way back. You answered all of my questions without knowing it, so thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you
so
very much. And thanks, Miranda.
Moving on to the third scheduled report, bond millage renewal timeline, principal of operations. David Raft, first time I've said that.
Any business cards?
Are you still Hornet Principal on Twitter? Okay, as long as we know where to find you. All right, whenever you're ready, David.
Sorry. So this is kind of started with the vision that I know Scott has been through this a number of times, and towards the end of his tenure, he had seen that there was some retiring debt coming off from former bonds, and that there's a one-time opportunity to really reclaim a renewal. We'll talk a little bit about that, but if you remember the 2015 bond, which was keep our student staff safe, warm, dry, and future ready. Well, they're in phase 3, starting this year, this spring. You'll see some action going on, and it's the next 3 years. There'll be a number of projects happening, and then that bond will be completed. What you might be seeing is the middle school gymnasium is getting a facelift on it all. It's going to look really amazing. I'll be a little sad that I won't see as much tan as I used to all my years I was there, but the renderings have it really impresses the fact that we continue to invest in our products that we have here and making our buildings that are a lot of them are so old. If you look at the high school, it's 20 years old coming up, and people walk through there and they think it's amazing that it's how old it is. And to be honest, that's the credit to our community, to the board, and to our staff. Middle school boilers are being replaced. That's not as exciting as the potential gym, but it's a lot more fiscally responsible. We have the Harvest parking lot will be coming into play. I can tell you from experience that was designed at the time. We don't use those architects anymore, but that was designed at a time where they didn't prepare for the buses. So when we brought the bus in the first day of school, I don't know if you remember, Jenny, but it was that we couldn't fit it on the side that it was supposed to go on, so we had to switch them, and we didn't. And I think the same example happened at the high school. We have HVAC controllers at the high school being fixed. A lot of technology still to be going on, and then a number of roofs being taken care of. And if you notice, our roofs are the 2 elementary buildings that are steel. We'll be looking at Pleasant Ridge, and then a lot of our roofs have flat spaces. Those which I know about, and I don't ask how, but I do as a principal. We checked out the roofs once in a while. But so why now? As I said before, it's a one-time opportunity after we're retiring some debt, and we have a potential to generate up to in excess of $180 million without raising individual taxes, which is always a benefit. We did do. You can go to the next slide. Sorry. Oh, I have a clicker. Oh, I have a clicker. Whoa. No one usually gives me a clicker or a microphone, and I got both. Got it. Okay. What we've done so far, part of our capital projects teams who've been working on this for over a year, we've partnered with a construction management firm and an architectural firm who goes out. This is very common. They go out and do needs assessment throughout the district. We're getting a bond of 10 years. We're looking to keep our investment going for the community, and as a lifelong Saline person, that's part of the piece that I'm proud of most, is that our community and our schools have continued to thrive and continue to stay up with the current times. And so they've done a needs assessment where they met with all of our principals, our directors, our staff, kind of go through the buildings. These firms do a very thorough job. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this needs assessment. Some of it's a very much of a want list in a lot of ways. So you really is having to nail down what is exactly needed and what we feel from a district standpoint and a community standpoint, what we want to go for in a renewal. So we've done site visits to other districts. We've done some college campus site visits, with more of those to happen, I'm sure. But really what we wanted to share with you is kind of our timeline. So beginning at the end of February and through April, we'll be having stakeholder focus groups throughout this community, trying to get a feel for sharing their needs assessment, talking about what is the community willing to support, what do they feel is important, what are the things that are out there that we need to obviously invest in. We're partnering with Epic MRI, the market research group, who will really dive into serving our community and finding out, one, does the community support this? And that's an important piece for part of this for a renewal. And also, what are the things they will support through this process? Then in April, towards the end, when we have the information and the data back, we will try to kind of sift through everything and kind of put together what the scope of the proposal will be. And at that time, we'd like to bring it to the board at May 10th at the first board meeting, kind of present to you, and then have discussion and time for you to ask questions and look into it. Now, along the way, these stakeholder focus groups will be, obviously the board will be invited to all of them. So if you want to participate in it, we'd encourage that and be supportive for us. But then the final presentation hopefully would be approved by you guys on the 24th, if you've decided as a board that we do need to move forward with the renewal. And then that would potentially go into the November 22nd ballot of this coming year. So just a recap of where we're at. Oh, Anna, who's been working really close with me. I'm sorry, that's her slide, so go ahead.
It's a little bit of a repeat. So just the two things that, as kind of messengers of the district, and you'll be talking about this and hearing a little bit over the next couple of months of when we're out with the community. The two different things, the focus groups. Obviously, we identified 12 to 15-ish different groups that we're going to go out and do a brief presentation with them to kind of gauge, what projects are relevant to them and how they feel about them. And then King Scott, the architect group that we work with, will actually have an assignment that we'll be able to collect feedback and really refine what that is. So those will be happening. Not super similar to what you went through as like the assessment group. It's more of an actual assignment, and this is some renderings of what might be happening and get their thoughts and feelings. And then that survey, I think, is really important because when miscellaneous random community members get that phone call, it's a live person. And I know we're not all used to talking to live people on the phone. So just to be aware of that, and there's a certain number of responses they want to collect, and both of those things will be happening before that refined window. So.
Any questions at this point?
I wanted to add that I didn't think that that's a real thing with, Epic calling people and them not hanging up on them. They're like, no, people will talk to us about this, and they will work to get a certain number so that we do have a good pulse of what the community will support. So that's a real critical move that we make for that.
Correct me, but King Scott is the same architect that we had the presentation from the middle school, and great, they do great work. It seems like they're, mindful about dollars and cents too, so
Yeah,
that's
I
nice to
think-
have them back.
No question.
And, just another plug for answer the phone and talk to people so we know what you want. Feedback is just, speaking for myself as a trustee, the feedback that we get from the community is huge. And I know today somebody said to me, I feel like I'm bothering you if I call you and talk to you about this. Email us, email SAS board, email Let's Talk, get in touch with people, get in touch with administrators, answer the phone when Epic calls, come to these groups, because it really does help guide the direction that the district goes with these decisions.
David or Anna, can you talk a little bit about, to build off what Jenny said, it's very important to get a lot of feedback. So can you talk a little bit more deeply about the focus groups to ensure that we have cross coverage, multi-generational, different school age children, different clubs and groups, things like that?
Yeah, we have a list of 12 to 15. We definitely have covered from our senior center to some of our the foundation groups, to our Rotary, to Alumni Association, our student groups at the high school and middle school. And if, now you're saying that, maybe we go even lower to the K-6 part of it. But
I think too, this was actually David's idea last week when we talked about some of the student groups, is we are going to identify, and Jay, we might need some Power School help, all of those current students that are going to be 18 in November, and actually bring them in for a very specific focus group to get their feelings about what we're doing facility-wise, so that'll be neat. And then, foundation group, obviously, the alumni foundation, not the alumni of the whole city, the Weber Bliss group.
City Council.
And I think something that we kind of, when Scott walked out the door, he actually handed us all of his bond binders, which is like these huge binders, and he hand wrote everything. And we were flipping through them the other day, and beyond the focus groups, which is really just to get what can we go for and what facilities and things like that, after that, during the campaign period, is where there'll be tons of little site visits to their place. So a Legion meeting, a Rotary meeting, a library meeting, where we can go in and just give a brief, hey, this is the bond, this is the amount, this is what's on it, please vote. So there's gonna be two sets of groups. This is far more detailed than the site visits of we need your vote.
And of course, if you have any other suggestions to it, share with us.
I think beyond one age group, maybe preschool. We know that, we are we have a lot of preschool and daycares in the community, and involving those parents before they even are enrolled in the school district would be important. And I also would just really encourage you, in addition to age groups, but really redefining the kinds of groups that you're also diversifying the makeup of those groups too. So soliciting feedback and opinions from a variety of voices will be really important.
Great point.
Any other questions or comments for David and Nana? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations again on your new role, David. Moving on to our first action item, we were going to start to have a discussion about the open trustee position. So I'm going to read the recommended motion to kind of open us up so we can talk without a name, because we aren't inserting a name quite yet. So I'd like to entertain a motion, please, to appoint a trustee to the Board of Education vacancy for Saline area schools through December 31st, 2022, and have a discussion of that before we go back and have a motion with a name in it.
I'll make it.
Okay. Brad, thank you.
I'll second.
Jenny, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. So we will come back to that with a name shortly, hopefully. So just to kind of open this up and remind everyone, I know the trustees are aware of this, So we have 30 days from Trustee Valenti's resignation to fill the post. If we do not fill it, it goes to the ISD for filling. So our goal should be to get to a name that we agree on tonight. I thought a little bit about how to how to go through this, and I want to hear from each person and obviously deliberate myself. And so I was thinking about the who, but also the what, the how, and the why. So for me, this is going to be really beneficial to hear your reasoning. So the what, what qualities and what facets and expertise are you kind of looking for? I was thinking about that in my decision making, or trying to get to a place where I could make a decision. How, what are the design criteria involved in the decision, and the why. This is a big one for me. Like, what really stood out last night? Right? What was something that you went home, I went home and chewed on this, rewrote my notes, typed them up, and really thought about this. So that would be really helpful. The last time we kind of went in a specific order, like we did for superintendent search, I don't plan to do that now. So anyone who wants to kind of dig in, we don't have to jump right to names, but anyone who feels willing to start the discussion, I'd appreciate that. And just so everyone knows too, we can only have one. Really thank everyone that applied, everyone that went through the interview process, those folks that pulled out and were reconsidering perhaps another time. So please know that we take the conversation very seriously, and in no means is a slight to any candidate at any time. So yeah, Susan.
I would like to make a statement real quick about why I wasn't present yesterday. I wasn't in attendance for the meeting yesterday. I was able to watch the live stream during the interviews and am prepared to vote. The reason why I wasn't present is a month ago today, my stepdad tested positive for COVID-19. He was unvaccinated and developed severe illness, and yesterday was his funeral. So I wanted to share that, and I appreciate that you all were able to live stream that, and I was able to watch all the interviews. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We missed you yesterday, and of course, again, offer all of our condolences. Anyone like to get started kind of with some of the qualities they're looking for, some of the things that stood out to them? Any observations? Don't be shy. And I know, Candace, you weren't a part of this last time because we selected you. So I'll throw out one quality because it was very prevalent with you. When I was listening to your interview last year, it was, how can we not pick her, right? There were so many special, unique facets, because one of the things that I consider is what is the current makeup of the board and what are we missing? Or what is, how do we strengthen? How do we diversify? And by diversify, I mean thought, experience, history, tenure, long-time Saline, new-time Saline, kid in young fives versus kid that's a senior in high school, all sorts of diversification. So that was one thing that kind of helped me make a decision. So I'll just throw that out there to get started. How can I ask you, like, how do you think it went yesterday, and what were some of your thoughts? Is it bad that I put you on the spot first?
No, it's fine. It's funny because when I was sitting in the audience last time around, I was thinking, I'm so glad I won't have to do this, because it's so hard, it is. So I recognize, how everyone is feeling out there that's listening and thinking about what are they going to say about me, or so I just want to reiterate President Stebbins' thank you for you stepping up, stepping forward, and saying yes. It's a big commitment, and something that stood out to me is there were a couple of candidates that show up regularly to board meetings, and this is not, it's not always fun or, information or, I don't want to say fun. Of course it's fun, but you know what I mean? Like there's tough tough things that we're talking about. Sometimes it's very detail oriented, and the fact that you're willing to sit here, even if you're not on the board, very regularly and just be present, that matters to me, and I think it made a difference in how I'm thinking about it. Also, individuals that are really detail oriented, I think is going to be important for us, and there were some candidates that had that quality that I really feel like they're going to read through the packet in detail, identify some good questions that we may need to be thinking about, reading through all of our policies and thinking about, where do we need to go from here, where can we revise some things to do to enhance our practices. I think that is critical and will be really helpful to us. Being collaborative, of course, is going to be important, as while we have difference of opinion on various things, we're able to, talk that out and come together ultimately. So those were all qualities that stood out to me. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Michael, did you want to say something?
So without saying any names at this point, you're quite right, Candace, about the people who show up to board meetings. To me, that indicates a level of passion for the district and support of the students. But some of the folks that show up are also really deeply engaged with the district as well. And here, they're driven to support the mission, they're driven to support the students and offered already of themselves in so many different ways, time and talent. And so those are qualities that I was looking for as well. And of course, anytime somebody mentioned collaboration, I went, oh, you're at the Grace Notes, and so I was quite pleased with some of the candidates and was surprised by some who struck me as far more engaging. I didn't know who they were at first, and I was quite delighted to meet some of these members of the community, and if they don't get appointed to the board now, I really hope to work with them and see them again in the future at various endeavors and activities. So,
yeah, Michael, I was thinking the same thing, that all of the individuals who both reached out and interviewed, it would be really nice to have some one-on-ones, because one thing I really, really wanted to do yesterday, and I understand fairness, we had our questions, we must have the same time and the same questions. There were several times where I wish I could have dug deeper on a couple of things to help the decision, because I really wanted a little bit more information, and that was hard. So I know we can't have that in this situation, but I really look forward to hopefully taking the opportunity to have a coffee or do something with those individuals in the future. To your points about showing up at the board meeting, I think that that's very important. I don't want to lose sight on the fact that some folks may need to also watch at home through live stream because of situations with their family or jobs or COVID or whatnot. So sometimes we don't necessarily know who's watching all of the time. And I also want to be fair, because I think about comments that I've heard about being kind of like, I'll just say new Saline, old Saline. And have you lived here? Did you go to high school here? Did you not go to high school here? And you kind of are put into boxes. I remember when I first moved to town, my family had been here, like 115 years or something, but I didn't live here before. And it was like, oh, did you go here? And I said, no, I didn't. And they're like, oh, okay. And so we tend to put people in boxes sometimes. So I don't want to necessarily not seem welcoming to people that are new either. And for me, I didn't really, some of the folks I knew the name, Luis, we've heard, I'm just going to say a couple names. Luis, we'd heard public comment from him. David, we've known from different interactions and board meetings, of course. But some of these names, I was like, who's this person? How old are their kids? And so I was also encouraged to see folks who wanted to get involved who hadn't been involved before, because that was me one day. And I think that that's important as well.
Again, thank you to everyone who threw your name in, and especially people who've been watching over the last couple of years, that they've seen that this has been a busy job and this has been intense, and decision making is often difficult, and it takes a lot. It's another full-time job, I think, sometimes. So I want to especially recognize a couple of things that I heard that stood out to me. So when we're talking about the what, and the why. So I really appreciated the parents who, and not just parents, just people in general, but I know all of our candidates last night were parents in the district, but I appreciated their efforts and volunteerism throughout the community, whether it be PTA or robotics or advocating for various student groups, coaching, all of the things that they contribute to our community. That if your seat is not here at this table, there is a lot, as Kristen stated last night in her statement too, that it takes more than just the people at this table to continue to work and to move things forward for students. It was also very clear to me, and a couple of candidates really highlighted their commitment to their own children, but also other children in the district and their advocacy. So those things stood out to me. The sacrifice that people have made for children in general really touched me. I sat here last night. I've also watched the video 2 other times, really listening intently and processing and just really trying to hear what each of the candidates said. I would say that if you are not selected for this position today, that there are opportunities, and we would love to see more people involved and to have that feedback from the community about the things that are important to you. And we saw a glimpse of that last night, I think. I like you, would have loved to have had more.
So, I'll echo a lot of what has been said already. The thing that stood out for me, like you said, Jenny, just now, the extreme commitment people had to wanting to be here, right? I just heard that over and over, right? We sacrificed, we did what we could to enroll our kids in the Saline area schools. It makes me proud to sit here in the first place, right? And to represent that, and it is a big commitment. It is it is something where, I think about the collaborative piece. I think about a lot of, I think every applicant last night spoke to wanting to foster and have positive communications and have relationships with others. And for me, like this position, if you will, is all about voices and relationships. And so for me, I want those things, and I want to be able to tap into people that have different backgrounds and skills, like you started off by saying, that complement our own, right? And so, I think about some of those kinds of things, and those are the things that kind of drove me through my decision-making process as I was, again, watching things again and thinking about, and, I think we all probably reviewed our notes and what have you. It is a tremendous commitment, and I thank everybody who is just willing to sit there and to show this incredible commitment to students. And so those are the things I was looking for.
Thanks. I meant to say one other thing. Well, there are many other things, but I'm going to throw one more thing out there because it's top of mind after listening to David. It's also top of mind after coming out of finance meeting today. Dennis left a little bit of a hole with finance. He was our finance chair for a long time. He was a professor of finance before he was a lawyer. So I from what I recall, and I was really listening for that question that was posed about the business side of the district, the governing versus the governing side of the district, and budget and policy. The other thing that was really on my mind is the numbers look a lot better on the COVID chart, but we are still in a period of turmoil in our world and in our community with health and with safety and with these kids in school and needing to do a wonderful job in school and with social emotional. And so I'm also thinking about who's agile and who's flexible and who can deal with some of the things that we've been dealing with sometimes. That was very, very front of mind. The other thing that was very front of mind was this past year was, somebody said rough. I heard that word in a good way. I'm really proud of the team, and I'm really proud to be a part of this team. But there was a lot going on, and we received, I remember because of the role that I had, I was responding to a whole lot of email in our late summer and early fall months. And so reading all that feedback coming off of a superintendent search where we read a lot of feedback about what the community wanted, I'm also thinking about not only collaboration, but connection. Let's be honest, we have, like every community in the United States right now, we have a community that's divided on different issues, and I won't shy away from saying that. So it was front of mind for me too, like, who cares about all 5,000 kids? Who can work with different constituency groups? Who can, from what we saw in just a few questions, kind of try to build bridges is an important thing for me. So those were just a few others.
Just to add on to that too, Jennifer, I was thinking about there's been some pressure at the table the last year. I know I felt it. And how do people respond in high pressure situations? That was also, in addition to the things that you mentioned, at the forefront of my mind. And some candidates address that, and we also know from some public participation about just how that works. So that was another thing that I was thinking about in watching and rewatching.
Any other comments? I'm open to ideas on how we proceed. I kind of like the idea of being respectful to each candidate. I know there were qualities and things I heard that I liked on all of them. I didn't know if you were open to going through them, kind of starting with candidate number 1 through, or if you all were more comfortable with going to kind of a superintendent search format, how we kind of threw up some names. What does everybody think? Yeah.
I would like to suggest, I believe we did this last time, just going person by person. And if you want to talk about 1 or 2 or all, we could do that. But that's how I would prefer.
Okay. So Susan, what I'm hearing is go individual trustees to kind of throw out some names, and then let's continue the conversation about the names that we're hearing. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then if you do want to take the opportunity to also include comments about some of the other candidates, that would be great. Does anybody want to go first? Should we start on an end, or I forget who we started with.
Just give a
Michael wants to start.
I'm going to say, just give a count time. Says, does anyone like to start? Let's wait for 10 seconds and then let somebody speak.
Okay, well, I think Jenny was thinking about it, so.
Oh, I was not.
You were not.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go
Okay,
ahead.
Susan, go ahead.
I would like to mention one candidate that stood out to me far beyond the other candidates. I think there were many, like all the candidates have, something to bring to the table. But the one that stood out to me was David Hayward. David was is very student-focused, data-driven, which I feel that we need on this board and would bring a great strength. David has been engaged over the years, coming to public comment, emailing, and actually has offered support to the board and the district as far as data, and I don't know if we've taken them up on it, but I really appreciate that initiative, and so that's who stood out from the rest for me.
All right, thank you, Susan. I'm going to go next because sometimes I go last, so it's kind of nice not to go last sometimes. I did want to say just a couple quick words about each candidate because I appreciate them taking the time, and I'm just going to go in order of the interview. So Jeroen, I really liked that he started off with saying he had no political aspirations. That really struck a positive chord with me because he seemed like he wanted to help. I think about the extracurriculars and where our kids are sitting up here at the table, and we don't have anybody with a robotics or a marching band background, and I know from what I've heard, he's been a good volunteer in those areas for a long time, so I wanted to point that out. Casey, when Casey was discussing strategic projects, the question around thinking a little bit more long-term, he discussed meeting with all stakeholders, and I think that that's incredibly important as well. So I appreciated that comment. Luis, I appreciate that he was transparent and said, even though I've kind of given you guys some constructive criticism, he owned it, and I appreciate people who are truthful and you see what you get. And that he seemed like he really wanted the schools to succeed, and I really like that. Jason, I appreciated also the transparency and some of the personal experiences that were shared and creating the motivation. I wish I could ask some additional questions on this one. I liked hearing about board work and working in together. I thought it was funny. He mentioned people told him not to do it, so then he decided he should do it. I totally understand that. And kind of being data driven. I appreciated that. David, I think I said this last time, so I'm just going to reiterate the comment. I feel that he's consistently wanted to support all of our students. I like the research, critical thinking, data piece of everything. Ryan, I appreciated that he moved here and said, I want to get involved. I mean, what I was hearing as a parent is he must have a very, very busy work schedule in the past, and he sat down and decided for him and his family that he was going to put these roots in and give back. And he seemed very dedicated and earnest and trustworthy. The roles that he's been in here in the past with crisis and teams were incredibly attractive to me. It reminded me of Candace. And kind of the really unique qualities that you have. I started hearing that with Ryan. The ability that he had to drive his kids 5 days a week and be really committed and then say, what else can I do in the school district with being a new person, I thought was really good. And I think it's sometimes a good opportunity to have fresh eyes. So I have a couple ideas, but if I'm going to drill it down to one, I want to throw Ryan's name out.
So first of all, I appreciate the words I'm hearing tonight. Like this deliberation is so important to me because of the quality of the people that we saw. And so, you know, I wrote down some things. First of all, if I might have just a second, Kristen Hoffman-Peebler, wherever you are, you have given extraordinarily to our district, and I wanted to recognize your statement and your, you know, what you said there, and I admire your desire to see it through and that kind of thing. So we all need support in our lives, and I sure admire that about Kristen and what she's doing for a dedicated employee who needs that support, and I understand it and I appreciate it. So with regards to the other 6 candidates, I'd like previously stated by a number of people, I'm going to probably mess up their last names a little bit, and I apologize ahead of time for that. Mr. Spatil, I loved his diverse learning experience. Right? He had experiences in numbers of different avenues. I admired his dedication and we have a thriving robotics team, and he is a big part of that. Right? I liked his motivations. You know, as far as like, I wanted to know more about millages and some of that kind of stuff, especially considering some of the renewal stuff we talked about earlier. So, you know, I wanted to know a little more in that regard with that particular candidate. With regards to Mr. Rule, I love his public health and IT background. I appreciated that his son was in the room with us. We always like to see students with us, and I appreciated all of our families come from different backgrounds and different situations. And I love the fact that he would have that special ed focus and would be able to bring his life experience to our team. So I liked that. I think that would, support the great work that's done by our educators, our parapros, our administrators. Those people support those students. I would have liked to hear more from him and just learn a little more about on finance and some of that kind of stuff. And I'd love to engage with him more in the future about some of those things. Mr. Barnett, I really liked how, I like that he's been engaged with us and that he's come and he's talked to us about things that have been real for him. I love and admire the incredible job he's done of prioritizing education for himself, his children, and I think that's incredible. I like the work he's done with Lincoln, right? When he talked about those are difficult decisions when you're going to consolidate a school. Like that would not be a fun time to sit where I'm sitting now. So those would be difficult things, and there's a lot of community feedback that goes into that. And so I admired the fact that he was engaged with that process in Lincoln. Let's see, Mr. Tizides, right? I liked your presence. I like that you had a strong background in safety and public health, and I will state that I'm sorry that you had experiences that did not validate our schools for you, and I hope that we can earn back some of that and the trust piece that goes along with that, and what have you. Mr. Hayward, you're such a talented researcher, and I said this in the past about from a science teacher. I mean, to hear about data and that kind of decision making and the processes that go into that. Oh, you're speaking my language. So that to me is a big deal. I think it's so incredible that you've seen the types of results that you've had, and I also want you to know that. You stated in your application that, you think doing the right thing by being an advocate for, specifically you stated non-binary students in our school district. I think you advocate for a lot of our students in this district, and I want you to know how much I appreciate that. And Ms. Davidson, Ryan Davidson, I thought he was authentic. I connected to his, you called it I think freshness. I connected to the fact that he said if he could have gone anywhere, he would have chosen to be here, and that 5-hour commitment to see that through. And I related to that. And I will tell you, as a person who 10 years ago moved into Saline, right? I related to his desire to be what can I do now? And so he got involved with coaching, and he, and I'm sitting here because I thought the same thing, right? Is how can I be as involved in my children's lives as I can be? I think he has a number of strengths that would benefit us, so I'd like to hear him talked about more as well. Okay, I'd like to hear Ryan talked about as far as, I think that he would be able to, he has probably encountered as a person who how to handle disagreements and how to be quote unquote that bridge to multiple sides of seeing things, and I really that resonated with me. I liked the ingenuity he kind of talked about, where he had to do a lot of quick thinking on his feet and in difficult situations, high pressure, instinct-based situations. And so I would, I think of that, and I think that would be something that he would bring that would be of great benefit to us as we consider him. And so that is that. So I guess if I was asking us to bring forth and debate a couple of individuals a little more closely, while I think a lot of them require that, I would have us continue I would prefer to discuss Ryan, Mr. Davidson, and Mr. David Hayward at this time.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So of the 6 we heard last night, 7, 6.5, let's say, and three stood out for me, and those names were Mr. Ruel, Mr. Davidson, and Dr. Hayward. And of those 3, sadly we don't really have enough time. I sort of heard you say, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to ask some follow-up questions? But we can't. We're limited by the time. Well, I mean, we could, but we could lose our opportunity to install someone ourselves and not have Dr. Naomi Norman do it for us. So I just want to say a few things then. I wish I knew more about Mr. Davidson's, yes, he's Saline new, I get that, but he really wanted to be here. I understand that too. So did many other people in the district. But he did admit that he lacked an education background, which would mean some ramping up of skills and getting up to speed on some of the issues, not just on our board issues, but on Saline issues. So there'll be a lot of questions, and it'll be a really fast-paced 10 months for him. But and I'm sure he could manage it. But I feel the same in some respects for Mr. Ruel. I feel like I saw him as genuine, and he was engaging, and I loved meeting Eli. And all that, and so he understands, he has a sense of the special needs populations in our school district, which is great. And so I could be satisfied seeing Mr. Ruel here as well. But Dr. Hayward, he's a known entity. Oh, there you are, so I can almost look right at you. You are a known entity. You've spoken here many times. Certainly less ramp up. I mean, there's no issue that's come before the board, I think, that you haven't participated in one way or another through your regular attendance. You've also been very supportive of the district, even when there are things here that you haven't liked. And I really didn't want to address it, but I'm going to anyway, regarding going back to our seclusion and restraint conversations. You had facts, you had statistics. There are some parts which I absolutely disagreed. Doesn't matter, because you saw the larger picture for the district. You know, you saw, you had a goal, you had a vision. We can an area of improvement, and you worked very hard behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and in front of the podium to make that happen. And I have to appreciate that. And with your background in science research and analysis, it shows all sorts of aspects of mind that I have no problem that thinking the rest of this table here could get behind. And I let Susan Eastep, Trustee Eastep, talk about the advocacy. You already brought it up, and I absolutely have to agree. You're an advocate beyond. I mean, you're extraordinarily. I don't know how to say it. You are an advocate of so many of our students who are have been marginalized and are in need of an advocate. And I thank you for that, even if you're not selected tonight. Thank you for that. So that's where I sit right now. I suppose if there are any of the candidates, Dr. Hayward, I think I'd back ahead of the other two, but I'd also be quite satisfied with the other two. And if we go along the path of talking about the rest, I have things to say about those as well, but we'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. We'll give Jenny and Candace an opportunity to have their voice, and then we can kind of go back to build off or ask questions about anything we've been hearing. Yeah, Jenny, did you want to go? Would you like to go? Or Candace? Totally up to you.
Chip, Dale.
Jenny wants to bring it home. I'm just kidding. So I just, I won't reiterate all the comments. I appreciated, Brad, the way that you walked through, or Trustee Gerby, Treasurer Gerby, walking through each of the candidates and some of their strengths. I agree with many of those that you shared. So appreciate that. I'm actually just going to bring forward one candidate, and that is David Hayward. Based on, this is a time-limited position. We're talking about through December. And I really think it's important that we have someone that can jump right in and get going. And as I mentioned earlier, what stood out to me is that they are always here, present, engaged, ready to talk about any issue that arises, not just the ones that are most important or to you, but any issue that relates to this district and student outcomes. The data-driven approach and your ability to research and analyze and present information, that's so important and it's needed. And I think it will be really helpful as we're doing some really important work this year that will need that quick thinking and but also deep analysis of policy and practice here on the board. So I think you could jump right in and hit the ground running, and that is excellent. I think the advocacy is important, but I also don't want anyone listening to think that, oh, that's the only reason. You know, there's advocating for marginalized populations and all of that. No, Dr. Hayward has an amazing background of research, behavioral sciences, as we talk about the challenges that students have faced, really thinking about the impact and the psychology of that. You know, this is his work and passion. So I think that that will be important as we're managing our way out of this crisis. So for all of those reasons, my support is fully behind David Hayward.
So I didn't want to go last just to bring it home. I just really, really, really wanted to hear from everyone else. You know, I think that when you sit through the interviews and then you listen to them twice again, this is an important decision, and it is just a 10-month position, but we have a lot of really important work that we're doing over the next 10 months. And so it's really important to me that you know, that we take this for what it's worth. So I do want to recognize just a couple, 3 candidates. I will say that Mr. Rule, I was, I guess, excited at the possibility of having a voice for our special needs populations, and someone who has a different experience than maybe my own as a parent or as a student. And so I appreciated that. One thing I will say about all of the candidates really is that I really, this is probably my right brain, creative side, but sometimes it's difficult for me to see the connection between someone's work experience and how that's going to impact their work on the board. So sometimes I can make that connection, and other times it seemed like connecting the dots when I was re-listening. So that was a little bit tricky to me. I hope that it's okay that since we've had an opportunity to hear from Dr. Hayward a number of times, one thing that I recalled from previous conversations, and maybe even the interview last year, I was trying to recall, but Dr. Hayward has actually served on a school board before. He has served on the school board at Honey Creek, I think. Daycroft, thank you for correcting me. And that to me also, when we're talking about a fast ramp up and roll up of things in 10 months and the work that we have ahead of us, that was appealing to me, that he would know some of the procedures and some of the rules by which we're governed. That they would know the policies and procedures and OMA and all of those things. I appreciate whenever they bring to us data. We often are getting research and numbers and things that are really important to the decisions that we're making, and the extra effort that has been taken to provide us with those things is appreciated. So those things were things that I was thinking about. I did appreciate Mr. Davidson's interview also. I found him to be incredibly genuine and humble as well, as some other people have mentioned. Also the fact that he's been in some high pressure situations, and he talked about his level-headedness in those situations. When he talked about his motivation for being here, I think it's something that we can all relate to. My main motivation for being here, my main 3 motivations for being here are Allie, Laney, and Drew, and I think that his commitment to his children is to be commended. That he chose a different career path, and as my limited knowledge of Secret Service and government agencies and things like that, I think that moving from one position to the position that he currently has, so that he can have more time with his family. I really want to encourage Mr. Davidson to continue to be involved as much as he can. I know that, when you're a full-time working parent, like I am too, it's sometimes not always possible, but I'd like for him to continue to be involved in our community and to really get to know the work of the district. So the two names that I really want to move forward, the other thing, if I'll just pause for just a minute too. I know I've said this a lot tonight because it's been something that I have been thinking a lot about in the last 24 hours, but this is a really important decision, and I really wanted to have community feedback, and I'm just going to say it, we didn't get much. We did not. And so I don't like to feel like I'm in an echo chamber of my own head. So I, tonight, am relying on the limited feedback that we had, my own research, and the interviews that we saw last night and the rewatching of those interviews, but I'm also looking at my colleagues here at the table, especially my colleagues who have had different life experiences than my own, so that I can hear and recognize what might be important to, I know that I'm a white woman, upper middle class in Saline. I know that I have the typical life story here, and I know that a lot of our kids don't. And so I want to recognize that I am here not just for people who look like me, but I'm here for all of our kids. And so I also just want to be honest with that. And I know that some people probably at home might be rolling their eyes about that, but it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's something that I've been doing a lot of work about. So that's why I asked to listen to everyone. I'm listening intently to what everyone else is saying tonight, and I think that that's important. And as Secretary Jones said, it's not just the advocacy, but it's the engagement, and it's the involvement, and it's the drive to do this work and to be involved that was impressive to me. So I guess that's what I'll say.
Okay, so can I you did,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I missed something.
I want to move, I would, if we're going to move a couple of names forward, it would be Dr. Hayward and Mr. Davidson.
Okay, thank you very much. So the way I'm hearing this is, and I'm using first names. I don't really have a level of intimacy with any of these people, but that's just who I am. I'm more personal. So I'm hearing Ryan with 4 mentions. I'm hearing David with 5 mentions at this point, and I'm hearing Casey with 1 mention. So I just wanted to give that tally. I wanted to give anybody an opportunity if they heard something that they'd like to comment on. I wanted to go first, and it was with something that Michael said. If I could clarify, when talking about Ryan, you had mentioned that he was lacking an educational background. So I just wanted to,
yeah.
yeah.
I get that.
Okay.
He's a master of
Right,
public
okay.
administration. Yeah.
Right. So what I heard, and I'm sure this is what you meant, but I didn't want to speak for you, so I wanted to clarify. I think it's no secret that most of us work in education or have a strong either high ed or K-12 background. So I thought that was, yeah, go ahead.
I was actually just quoting him. I have no background in education, is what I meant to say.
Thank you, because I had written down Master's in Public Administration with budget focus, and that he had written policy. So when we think about translation and ramp and things like that, I totally appreciate that. I think honestly, there's a pro and a con on both sides. There really is. So there's a pro to knowing a little too much going into something, and there's a pro to knowing a little less. I think in my personal experience, when I came on the board, obviously I had volunteered quite a bit in Saline area schools, and I was familiar with them, but I'd been to a few board meetings, and you know, I had done budgeting and forecasting for sure. I hadn't written policy, and so I don't think, I think anyone's ramp time is a little bit significant in this role. But I think there's pros and cons on both sides, because I think in my experience coming in that first year, that I saw things that a board that was pretty tenured at that point, when Susan and I were elected, we hadn't, it was our first time being elected to this board. And I felt, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but I felt I looked at things a little bit differently than the rest of the group looked at, because I hadn't been sitting here or I hadn't been in that kind of role. So I just wanted to add that.
I'll back that up a bit too. So, you know, I will tell you, having gone through the process of an election last year, I will tell you one of the things that I also resonated with Ryan is I agree that I liked the idea that he kind of, for lack of better term, wasn't quote unquote jaded to me, right? Like, he didn't seem like he, you know, like, I will own the fact that, like, going through an election, I incredibly underestimated the microscope and the things people would say, and you know, and it's okay, like, that's part of the deal. But at the same time, it's one of the reasons that Ryan really resonated with me was that genuine piece and that willingness to just learn and get on the ground and let's go. And so, like, for me, I think that's why I found him so engaging for me. And so I guess I would agree with that statement, and that's why I would say that as well. I think that his education background, he has enough where he talked about, you know, being able to understand about you know, finance due to, you know, being involved in a business and, you know, or being in an administrator, I think it was business administration program, right? No. Public administration program and what have you. And so I see a person actually who, you know, I would imagine that to do the things he's done, he's had to learn on the fly in a lot of situations. In fact, he even talked about, I had 5 minutes to prepare for the Vice President of the United States to have a completely different situation than what I originally thought was going to happen. And he said, we just got together, we teamed it up, and we got it done. So for me, I guess I don't see, while I appreciate the fact, I do think Dr. Hayward would have a tremendously fast ramp up, and I think he would be very knowledgeable about our schools. I don't want to discredit that about Ryan, because I think he would do the work. Anyway.
Okay, any other comments on what trustees had said individually? Okay. So that said, I'm just going to go back through, I think my suggestion, and I'm open, of course, to any input from the team. A few of us had selected one person. A few of us had not selected one person. So I think we should try to narrow a little bit. If you had selected 2 people or 3 people, if you could consider doing one, and then we can have a little bit more of a vote. So I'm looking at Jenny, Michael, and Brad. Unless Susan would like to change her vote, or I would like to change mine, or Candace would like to change hers.
Or unless someone would like to call the question.
Yeah. Susan, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to ask, clarify with Michael. I feel like he put one forward, but.
Me?
Did you?
2, 3.
I had 3.
Okay. You just, I thought you said a top one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course you can change it.
I said, well, actually, just to clarify, we were in the early stages of the discussion, and I suggested that 1 was strong, 2 were not as strong, and 3 I didn't want to consider. And it looks like nobody else wanted to consider them. So call mine a half vote if you want at this point, if you're looking for numbers. And I could withdraw my support for Mr. Ruel and Mr. Davidson. If you're looking to count to 4.
I think that would be my suggestion if anybody didn't have it. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to take care of that. Thank you, Michael. Brad or Jenny? Brad, do you want to go next? I don't know if Jenny wants to go last again, or don't want to put anybody on the spot. I know. So Brad, I had, well, actually for both of you, I had Ryan and David written down. I know, I mean, it gets to the point of, we saw so many wonderful qualities. We don't want anyone to feel, slighted in any way, trying to look at positive attributes and kind of, making the decision, but yeah, I don't want any candidate to feel slighted for sure. But yeah, Brad, are you toggling yours on, or are you not? I can't see your hand.
I'm in tremendous thought. Like I just said out loud that I believe that Dr. Hayward he'd do a good job, and I know Mr. Davidson would do a really good I keep saying Dr. Hayward would do a really good job, and Mr. Davidson would do a really good job. But I'm with the team. So if the team sees this as, like we have to let go of Mr. Davidson, and we still get to have Dr. Hayward, and I see that as a pretty good thing. So I would say that's where I'll go.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you're withdrawing support for Ryan. Or
I still support him.
Okay.
I believe in our team, and I believe in both of these individuals, and if the team is with Dr. Hayward, then I'm with the team, so.
Okay, so we'll see. So Jenny, do you have comments?
So at one point in my notes, I just want to say that I accidentally wrote down Ryan Hayward because I think I'm going back and forth between these two people who have such different things to offer to our district, and I think both of their perspectives are just incredibly important. And I mean, I think when I'm thinking about Mr. Davidson, I'm just thinking about his energy and his desire to be here. I feel like with the work that we have ahead of us this year, that is some energy that could really bolster us and our community. So that was really appealing to me. But I just go back to David's consistency and their willingness to show up and to be here. I also, like, in just reviewing my notes, I said this before, but it's sometimes really difficult for me to see the connection between the work that someone's doing in their professional experience. And I think the questions last night really led people to draw on that professional experience, and that's maybe why we didn't hear about Daycroft last night. But as I continue to reflect on that, and I know Jennifer, President Stebbin, you're bringing up the point that, the ramping up, I agree, last year was like, a lot and intense. But this particular position is for 10 months, and so that ramping up and the work that we have ahead of us is critical, and the pace will need to be enhanced. And so as I'm looking through my notes, I know I just started to say two different things. So the first thing I'm going to say is that it was difficult for me to see a little bit of like the when Dr. Hayward was talking about level 2 to level 1 trauma center and all of those things. I was like, okay, how does that relate to what we have in front of us? But then as I was thinking about it for the third time when I watched the tape before this meeting, I was thinking about how it is 10 months, and they were talking about this 3-year review cycle and how they came into this position with only half of that time, and they were able to get the job done and to have that success. And I thought, gosh, with a 10-month cycle, like that's going to be the same. We have some important work to do. The ability to dig deep into research and to pull data and numbers that can help us in decision making was appealing to me, even though potentially the daily research that you're doing might not be directly connected, but the background in developmental psychology, I think, is incredibly important. The lens for public health can be extremely beneficial to Karen Hervey, and as we're deciphering the information that's coming from the health department, and different districts are making different choices based on the information that's coming from the health department. So having an expert in that lane can be incredibly important. I just, as I'm looking forward, I feel like Dr. Hayward rises to me to just a little, I think, Mr. Davidson, I hope if you're listening today that that you're going to continue to be involved, and we want you to be involved, and we welcome you to our community. And we hope that, we'll see you at these meetings, or maybe on even some board committees would be great to have his perspective, especially around safety and, with some of the things that have happened in December. So anyways, I'm going to, I don't like saying pull my support, like Brad said, but I'm incredibly supportive of Mr. Davidson and hope to see him around. But I am going to support Dr. Hayward.
Okay. We'll say tip your hat.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Thank you. I like it.
All right, excellent. Okay, so I think we should move forward, and I would just like to I'm sure the other trustees would like this too, but Jeroen, Casey, Jason, Ryan, Luis, please reach out to us. I will sit down and have a coffee. I want to hear, there were several things that really, really resonated with me that each of you said, and I would love to have a deeper conversation on that. I won't go into them now, but please hold me to my word. Kristen Hoffman-Peevler, I also wanted to invite you to do that, as well as the other individuals who Secretary Jones said had some conflicts and other things that couldn't move forward in the process. Appreciate their interest and happy to talk with them anytime. So please hold me to it, hold the board to it, and we will find opportunities to engage you in this community for sure. So with that said, I'd like to please entertain a motion to appoint Dr. David Hayward to the Board of Education vacancy for Saline area schools through December 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Candace, thank you. Support?
Second.
Okay, support. Susan, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. David, congratulations. Okay. Hate to be procedural, but that's my job, so I'm keeping us moving right along.
Should we just, now that he's here, just talk about next steps to everyone to February 22nd?
We can, and it is later in the agenda for what is on the schedule for the agenda for the 22nd, but David will be in touch with you because onboarding needs to occur before the 22nd, and the ceremonial oath will be taken, and Betty Yankee will be following up with paperwork that needs to be completed within 10 days from today. Okay? All right, excellent. Moving along to action item B, I'd like to please entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 25th, 2022, closed session for the purpose to review and consider the contents of an application for employment.
So moved.
Thank you. Jenny? Support? Susan?
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I'm moving right along. It's closed session minutes. I apologize. So because of the Open Meetings Act, we have to complete closed session minutes a little bit differently. So Jenny and Susan, I'll come back to you for those motions and support. But Secretary Jones is going to pass out 6 envelopes. They contain the minutes from the closed session that we had at our last Board of Education meeting on January 25th. Our protocol is that each trustee will read their numbered copy. When they're ready, they'll pass it back to Secretary Jones. She'll ascertain that she has all 6 copies, which she'll shred, and she'll give 1, if passed, to Betty Yankee to keep closed in file for 1 year. I was just ready to roll right along. Okay, let's take just a minute to read. Okay, if you can just verify that you have all 6, we can move forward.
I was looking at you, Trustee Eastet, because I forgot that you're no longer secretary. My bad.
Okay, perfect. So Jenny, if I can call on you for the motion again,
Yes.
Susan, count on you for the support. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0 again. Action item C, I'd like to please entertain a motion to approve the Intercom proposed technology purchases for devices and supporting infrastructure updates in the amount of $451,222.94 as recommended by Jay Grossman, our Director of Technology.
So moved.
Michael, thank you.
Support.
Jenny, thank you. Anybody would like to say anything about this?
Jay's still here. Jay, do you want to touch base about this to give an overview? It's in the packet. Yeah, it's pretty. It's the three basic areas: Project Lead the Way laptops, student laptop, desktops, and infrastructure core router. So it's the general maintenance and the turnover that we need to do with to update technology.
Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Item D, I'd like to please entertain a motion to approve the CNM Associates bid for the purchase and installation of Saline Middle School Gymnasium equipment in the amount of $195,231.00 as recommended by Rex Clary, Director of Operations.
So moved.
Jenny, thank you.
Support.
Candace, support, thank you. Any comments on this one?
I can just add on, so this is part of the new gym, this is the stuff, the backboards and power backboards, and the gym curtains, batting cages, touchscreen, PA system type of stuff that will need to go into the infrastructure of the gym, the new gym.
Let's go.
I was going to say again too, I was just so impressed with the plan for that,
Me too.
for that renovation, and I'm so excited to see it. And so to see these items coming up on our agenda for approval for purchase just makes it real for our kids. So
I know, I'm very, very excited for that next year.
If I could add on to that, just this project alone of working with 3 different vendors to bid this out with Rex, Kurt, Anna, Miranda, David, this takes a lot of time, which is also why, as David has moved into this principles of operation position, can devote more time to capital projects. And again, with Rex and Kurt and Miranda and Anna, they have other jobs. They can put more attention to that and allow for David to be able to work through a lot of these capital projects, which are ongoing now and potentially into the future.
All right, sounds good. Lots of good work. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. The next is our added item that was pulled up from the consent agenda, please. I'm going to enter it with a blank first. We'll have a discussion, then we'll come back to the motion with a name. I'd like to please entertain a recommended motion to appoint a individual for a 3-year term to represent Region 7 on the MASB Board of Directors.
Glad to do it.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
support.
Jenny, support. All those in favor, please say aye.
Background discussion if necessary. Okay, well, let it go.
No, it's fine. If you want to tell us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Just a heads up, I did email every board member and superintendent in Region 7. That was about 564 of them. I did not email you. I think you know me by now. And if you don't know me by now, well,
Yeah.
anyway. And also you did nominate me, but I colored in the details. And if you look at the board pack, I was delighted to see that. I've got my platinum level and none of the other candidates were even close. But one fellow there did have 22 years of experience. Yeah, well, okay. Perhaps I'll get that many someday.
Okay, so
But I appreciate the support.
Okay, just a point of order, we need to vote before we have discussion. So I had the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought we were voting.
No, we have to insert the name for the second one. So this is just to open up the conversation. So I have a motion made by Brad, I have a second made by Jenny, then we need a vote, then we can discuss, and then we would move for the motion with a name in it. So all those in favor, please say aye to open discussion.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Everything that Michael just said.
I was just about to say, I got nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Good luck to you, Michael.
I should find out, March 2nd is when the ballots close. But
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay, so I'd like to please entertain a motion for an approval to vote for Michael McVeigh for a 3-year term to represent Region 7 on the MASB Board of Directors.
Now I'd really like to make that motion.
Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
Second.
Support? Oh, I'm telling you. Where's my coffee? It's only water. Jenny, support, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our discussion items. Treasurer Gerby, our finance chair, would you like to give a general update in finance?
Yeah, I'll keep this brief, and actually I can really keep it brief because of so many of the items we've talked about tonight being relevant. So first of all, we had our first meeting of the Finance Committee today. And first of all, I want to thank President Stebbin and Trustee Jones for joining me on that committee. And most of all, I want to thank Miranda Owsley. Like, I'm glad she got to come in the limelight today and what have you. I know that her commitment to this work is unparalleled. So thank you for your commitment to being so thorough about, and when we ask you for things, we get the data and all that. So we had just a couple of things that we talked about today. We did talk about enrollment, right? And so we're always being cognizant of the relationship between enrollment and structure. And I just hear like Dennis, like talk, that I hope I'll be able to do this work as well as he did. And so we talked about that. And then the second thing we talked about were the bond dollars. Earlier in the night, you heard Mr. Raft talking about, the idea of the things that are happening at the middle school this upcoming year. But there's also a number of other things that he highlighted on. But so this summer will be about the middle school, and then next summer about HVAC at the high school, roofs, Harvest parking lot, and buses. And so we talked about that. And then the last thing we talked about was ESSER dollars. And I want to reiterate how much I appreciate also the time and efforts of those who participated in those discussions and gave feedback. And we want that feedback. And I guess the last thing I will say before I hand it off is in the last week, there has been some budget preview items that have started to come forth from the governor. Now, none of that is set in stone, but I will tell you it's positive, right? Like it appears that the revenue conference is going to project that the state of Michigan, that the school finance fund or school aid fund will be strong. And so we anticipate that there will be increases in foundation allowance. And as we heard earlier, right, like the primary ways in which we fund our schools is enrollment and the foundation allowance. And so when those two things come together for us, we can do a lot of incredible things. So it looks tentatively positive, but I say that until it's actually like debated and figured out, and so it's a little bit to be determined as well. But as of now, our finances look strong in the district, and I'm happy about that.
All right, excellent. Moving on to discussion item B, policy committee update. Michael McVeigh, policy chair.
Yes, you guys are a little faster out of the gates than policy committee is because we haven't met yet. We are meeting February 22nd. Joining me in that committee are trustees Jennifer Miller and Susan Estep. And I know we've got a lot of talent on this bench for policy committee, but I just wanted to share a few things coming up. We are going to be looking at some Neola updates without a doubt. I'm looking for policy revisions from individual board members, and we're going to give a swing at tidying up our board operating procedures. So those are just a few of the things we have on the agenda. Plus, we have one or two items that need to be taken care of from last year, and Trustee Estep is well aware of those, and we'll knock those out of the park soon as well. And of course, this whole recent review of people for appointments and replacements, we thought we would really work on, since it's all fresh in our minds, making sure that's really clear in our heads as well as we review the process and procedure. So we're looking forward to that.
And we're off.
Endeth the report.
All right, great. Administration updates, Dr. Latch.
Okay, thank you. Many of you probably do not know, but tomorrow, February 9th, is National Crossing Guard Appreciation Day. And Saline Area Schools is very fortunate to have these very dedicated, hardworking crossing guards assisting our students to and from school on a regular basis. Barbara Babcock, John Heller, Teresa Schmidt, Darcy Bechtel, Kathy Harmon, Sarah Robinson, Lisa Flynn, Richard Bolter, Nicole Eberlein, Isabel English, Danielle Gillespie, and Robert Barima. These unsung heroes are sincerely appreciated by the Saline Area School students, staff, and families. Thank you also to the Saline Police Department for coordinating and managing the Crossing Guard program. When you drive through Saline with a crossing guard on duty, please drive with caution and take a moment to give them a wave and a smile to let them know their service is appreciated. And if you're watching now when it's been really cold out, that's a really dedicated position, and that does describe unsung hero right there. I also wanted to point out, we've heard a little bit about tonight talking about Black History Month, but you know, it really gives every American a chance to reflect on the accomplishments of African Americans. We really need to make sure that we have focused on not it being with deficit and about slavery or other issues, but these great accomplishments. And so I tweeted about this earlier today, but I watched a good, it's a year-old video, but from Good Morning America, explaining more of the history of Black History Month, with Carter G. Woodson being the founder, and then talking about why it falls in February. And it's a good video to gain some perspective, which I enjoyed, and would encourage all of you to watch. I will put that in the Friday memo. I also want to appreciate the community with the flexibility with the 3 snow days. Those were challenging. You know, I'm sure it was appreciated by most of our students. At least I got that feedback. But it's always difficult on families when you have 3 days off in a row and then into the long weekend. So we don't take it lightly to call snow days on inclement weather, but we also take the safety of our students very seriously as well. And we also want to point out that even on snow days, our grounds crew, they're working around the clock to clear our parking lots, because we were still having some events in the building. And so they're working on, you know, till 3 a.m. until they are required to go home by law. And it's just, that's another group of unsung heroes that you never talk a lot about, but they're working all night long in those evenings. And then finally, I want to thank Trustee Valente for all his years of service on the board and over 6 years in support. He did a tremendous job, and I want to welcome our newest trustee, Dr. Hayward. I'm really confident that they will do a tremendous job. Thank you.
All right, well said. Thank you. Would any trustees like to make any comments? Susan?
Yes. So I was able to Zoom in. Thanks again for offering a Zoom option while I've been away. But I was able to Zoom in to the ESSER community conversation. And I really appreciated hearing the feedback and different voices of, you know, the ideas and hearing, you know, from the staff about the admin, about you know, that process and what the funds are for, and the, you know, finances around that. That was really helpful. I would like to, I didn't ask this earlier, but hopefully the board can get some of that data before it's presented at the next board meeting, as far as the survey results and stuff, because it was super tiny. And so that would be super helpful. Tomorrow we have a DEI advisory committee meeting, so I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully sometime they'll be presenting to the board in the coming months. Thanks.
Just a couple of things. We do have our DEI meeting coming up tomorrow, and so I know that there'll probably be some discussion tomorrow. One thing that I just wanted to point out is that while we celebrate with intent and deliberateness during the month of February, I do think that the video and the information that Dr. Lott shared with us is really important. And I also want to recognize that that the books and the resources that we share with our students are not meant for just February. And so if you are looking to do more research or more understanding, or if you're looking to support teachers in their classrooms, there are a couple of different ways that you can do that. One way, the WISD has a diverse lending library that supports the entire county. I'm sure that teachers in our school district get books from them to support their curriculum and their students, and that's a place where you could also donate books. You can also donate books directly to classrooms, to libraries, to schools. I know that when books have been donated to our libraries in the past, our building libraries, there's been sometimes a little like placard on the beginning that says donated from maybe your children, or in honor or memory of people who are important in your lives. So looking at resources from Books of Belonging, social justice books, First Book, and Lee and Low are they're not just places where you can look at books and titles, but they're also places where you can find out the importance and the reasons why we would have celebrations of a variety of identities, and how important that is to our students. So I know that that will probably and is an ongoing conversation that we have on DEI, but it's also something that I'm really passionate about. And again, I just want to reiterate that while we celebrate Black History Month during the month of February, that this is not a conversation that ends in February, but that it's ongoing and important in our schools.
I just had two things I wanted to share. I'd like to go back to your comment, Dr. Lott, about the snow day and the fact that we had a snow day. There's a member of our community we all know who made a tweet about the snow day, which struck me as gave me one of those oh moments. The fact that Ann Arbor had online learning days. Now, I'm a big supporter of online learning days. It's my background, it's my area of interest and specialty. But the observation was made, thank you, Tran Longmore, that we could afford an actual, honest to gosh, snow day complete with snowmen and sledding because we had our students in school face to face and didn't have to shut down the way Ann Arbor did earlier. And so not to denigrate Ann Arbor at all, but it was an interesting observation. I want to thank you for putting that in my brain cells, Tran. The other thing, this morning I listened in to the Senate Committee on Education and Career Readiness, the Michigan Senate. And the NWEA researchers and charter school researchers were talking about learning loss. And I just wanted to share a few statistics if we think it's, if parents talk to us a little bit about it. They finally now have a great set of data from fall 19 and fall 2021. They left out fall 20 because a lot of the NWEA tests were done at home, so that research was all sloppy and messy. So there are consistent declines in math across all grade levels and pandemic related. And in reading, it's the same situation, except, interestingly, they're minimal for the middle schools, which I found really interesting. Middle school reading levels did not decline that particularly harshly. Nationally, their shifts in achievement in math and reading were impacted greatly by the pandemic. That's all over the U.S., so we're not alone in this. That people are looking to point blame at policies. They're going to have a tough time to do it. I also wanted to share, finally, race and socioeconomic factors where there were inequities before, they're greater now. So we have a lot of work to do ahead of us, and we have a lot of tough people thinking about how to proceed. And the ESSER conversation I think was an extraordinarily important one as we work toward remedying that deficit in scores and so forth. So there are a lot of folks looking at it, and I was delighted to hear that for the most part, politics got into the conversation toward the end, at which point I shut it off. But the facts were laid on the table, and I was greatly appreciative of those. So just want to let you know about that.
Okay. So I also had a chance to join the ESSER community conversation and really appreciated hearing from the community about ways to spend those funds, and look forward to hearing from more as community feedback continues to come in. We hope that others will feel comfortable with sharing ideas with us. It's Black History Month, and I'm glad that several trustees have brought that up. And I wasn't going to say anything, but as it's been on my mind the whole meeting, we have a ways to go in this district as it relates to race. And my youngest son today was called the N-word. And yeah, I mean, we talk so much about understanding one another and learning about one another and acceptance and windows and mirrors, but those windows are so important, really looking into others' experiences and understanding who they are beyond the color of their skin. And I really, it's a passion of mine. I mentioned it when I came to interview, for the board. While it wasn't the only reason I wanted to step forward, it was important to me, not just because of my family's experience, but just really wanting this district to be one that is not only excelling academically, but is really a welcoming and inclusive space for all. And we've taken a lot of steps forward, so I don't want this to become the story about tonight's meeting at all, because we're doing so much great work, but we have more work to do. And Dr. Lotch knows, and I'm consistently willing and always reaching out and wanting to be a part of the conversations that are happening about what next, because I don't want it to just be a finite period of time. Black History Month is great. Okay, February we talk about the great accomplishments of the community, like Dr. Lotch said earlier. Really wanting that to be, and Trustee Miller mentioned as well. How do we understand one another all year long? And it just be a way of being that we want to get to know one another beyond the color of our skin, but also understanding our experiences and the unique experiences that a variety of groups have. And it's just so important. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit emotional today and this evening. It's been on my mind all day, and just really wanting to be there for my son who was harmed today. So, thank you.
Candace, thank you for sharing, and just allow us to acknowledge the magnitude of what you were saying. Thank you very much. Yes, of course.
Yeah. And in response to that, Trustee Jones, it shows the importance of us needing to continue with the listening sessions that we spoke about, that we did a couple years ago, to address some racism issues that were going on in the community. Those are still going on. We need to make sure that we continue to have open dialogue about this, and we've had discussions, I know I have, with Kara Davis, our teaching and learning team lead, about that needs to get ignited again, get people back together to be talking about, because we have kids that are still being harmed, and we need to do more as we move forward. And it was brave to talk about that today, and I'm very sorry that happened in the district.
But it's good to talk about and bring to the surface. Great. Brad, did you have any, you're good. I did have a few. Okay, so I've been busy with trustee vacancy coordination, obviously, behind the scenes. Welcome, David. Also had finance and foundation for Saline area schools meetings today. Brad already went over the finance, so I just wanted to give some updates from our foundation friends. If you know any alumni from Tecumseh or from Saline, we are really looking for players. The basketball game will be at Saline Middle School on February 26th. I did reach out to the Tecumseh Board of Education and heard back from a couple of them, and they're going to help spread the word. I might have challenged them just a little bit. The foundation, I'm really proud to say, has spent $99,000 to date through 29 grants, 2 which were approved today and 26 left to review. We'd like you to please remember to save the date on April 28th at Imagine. There'll be an auction and an event there. And I had mentioned earlier that it is Career and Technical Education Month. Dr. Rowe will be with us at the February 22nd meeting, so I do not want to steal any of his thunder, but he has so many wonderful things going on in SWWC. Just some highlights include 6-digit revenue support for welding, health sciences, and more. He's looking at expanding programming content. He's looking at the 8th grade tours that will begin next month to seed interest in some of those courses once they get up to the high school. And he's talking with community ed about adding a lot of summer programming for middle schoolers as well and getting them involved that way. So really, really excited to hear how much goodness is going on in CTE specifically this month. I was at the senior center today for lunch. I created a smoky chicken corn chowder. I did not win, but I had a lot of fun. Incidentally, was next to McPherson's, and we did the same exact soup from the same exact cookbook. But so I had a really fun time going back and forth, and we were challenging each other. But it was really good to do something with our seniors, because we tend to see the students more and the staff more, and really being over there and talking with our older community members is so important. So I really enjoyed that. And I wanted to remind the board and perhaps open it up to central administration if you would like to support Mr. Brian Puffer's request to have a craft basket at the Saline Craft Show. Wanted to thank Secretary Jones for supporting that. So I'm going to be putting a basket together. We're looking for like a STEM kind of theme, and I'll craft it all up, and then that will go to hopefully a child in the district that is looking into STEAM and STEM activities. You remember when we did that a little while ago, and then COVID hit.
Did we sell that or put it out?
I gave it to community ed, so I'm not sure. I think
Might
the
still be out there.
I can check. I don't think so. I think the intent was to give it to Saline Area Social Services and kind of create gifts that way. But it was like 2 years ago, so I don't know. And that is all that I have. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me. Moving on to item number 11, the consent agenda. The following are offered as part of the consent agenda. The motion noted will allow for the authorization of all listed items without discussion unless a member of the board requests that any one or all be considered individually. A, approval of the Board of Education regular meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022. B, approval of the Emergency Board of Education meeting minutes for January 27th, 2022. C, approval of payment of the general fund accounts payable of February 8th, 2022 in the amount of $2,609,035.24. D, approval of payment of Bond Series 3 accounts payable of February 8th, 2022 in the amount of $397,323.66. E, receive and file curriculum, finance, and human resources reports. Approval of overnight and or out-of-state field trips as submitted by Superintendent Lodge. Item number 1, field trip 77, SWWC BPA competition in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from March 10th to March 13th, 2022. Could I please entertain the motion to pass the consent agenda as read?
So moved, McVeigh.
Thanks, Michael. Support?
Support.
Support.
I heard everybody. Susan, did I hear you? No. Candace. Like, it was like echo. I heard Jenny over here too.
Oh, I actually didn't say anything. I thought Susan was going for it.
I thought. Okay, we're gonna go, for Betty, we're going Michael and Candace. Consent agenda, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Items scheduled on our next agenda.
Yeah, we have a literacy report being led by Kara Davis and the teaching and learning team, school of choice discussion, ESSER update, and a possible budget amendment either at the next meeting or into March. So we'll determine that.
And Dr. Rowe.
No, that's
That's not February 22nd?
No, I think that's March.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have too many things on this next agenda.
That would be a
So
lot.
not SWWC
Okay.
at the next meeting.
All right, great. Now is our second opportunity, please, for public comment. A member of the public may address the board briefly for up to 3 minutes or request to be scheduled on the agenda of a future meeting. I am seeing no student forums. I am seeing 2 community stakeholder forums. Darcy Berwick, parent. And Darcy, you probably remember all the, yeah. All right, go whenever you're ready.
No, okay. I just wanted to say that I was disheartened to hear about Candace Jones, your trustee Jones, your son's experience today. But I'm not surprised. I feel like that we have been rehashing this issue of bullying and harassment for years now. I'd like to say that it really came to the forefront in 2018, but I can't because, you know, I was here in, I think it was 2010 when we started the No Place for Hate program after the incident on the playground at Heritage. So we know that it's a problem. And yes, listening and dialoguing are great, but at some point that needs to move to meaningful change. And I don't know that we're there yet. And when I talk to kids and parents, a lot of these things are treated as individual incidents, and we're not looking at the aggregate or the bigger picture. And I think that more listening sessions would be lovely, but I think that that needs to move the ball forward, and we need to enact changes that will improve the situation because, well, it's fairly, you know, it seems to be a ubiquitous thing in our community. A child who experiences that takes that with them, and it's not a generic experience, right? It's very specific and heavy to them, and it builds, right? Because some of these kids are targeted with the same sorts of abuse over and over. And so while we see slurs used, for that kid, it builds up. And I would like to see the DEI maybe looking at doing a little bit more work with kids and the parents and, like I said, making some meaningful change on this front. I look forward to Shannon Washington's 3rd series next week. But maybe after that, we can move for someone a little bit more permanent to start making some of these changes because we just haven't been able to do it so far. So I would love to see that coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Next, Tiffany Alexander. And I know you remember our little procedure. Whenever you're ready.
Hi. So, because it's Black History Month and I wanted to support what Trustee Jones spoke about a week ago, my child also was the victim of a racial hate crime, really. A child significantly older than her decided to sit next to her, them, they go by they, them now, decided to sit next to them in their class. And he proceeded to pull up the Confederate flag, enlarge the picture, put it next to them, and stare at them in their face. Fortunately, my child was able to capture a picture of this. Then the child proceeded to stare at my kid from every vantage point in the room. Every time my child looked up, he was glaring in their face. This is a much older child who is a senior, close to being an adult, and it's intimidating. And now, every day forward, my child's concern is, am I going to see him today? Am I going to, because my child's words to me was, it feels like I'm walking into a classroom where I'm not welcome to be there. And I can't tell them that when it comes to this student, that they aren't unwelcome to be there. I can tell them that their school welcomes them, that their teacher welcomes them, that their board members support them. I cannot tell them that there's not an individual in that room who really doesn't want them to be there. And it feels like a direct threat. So I very much understand where you are and how that feels and what it does and the lack of comfort you can really honestly offer. One of the things I hear a lot in this community, not in the school, but in the community, is how these are isolated incidents. And they're not. And I feel like a lot of what happens is these things aren't talked about. They're treated as individual incidents rather than as one big picture. And so people think it's these little, I don't know a person of color in this community who has not had a child experience this. I just don't. I don't know any. And for the parents I don't know, the parents I know who know other people, they don't either. I don't know anybody who can say I know a person of color who's never been through this. So I think that's a big part of it, is that the community needs to realize that this is every day for some kids. And it's certainly every day in probably every building. I can't say that for sure, but it's certainly every day for a lot of kids. And it's hard on families, it's hard on the kids. So I'm not sure what our next steps need to be, but we need to move forward.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. And I know Dr. Lodge will follow up on that. I saw him taking those notes. Our next meeting, our next regular Board of Education meeting will be held on February 22nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m., where we will install our newest trustee to the Board of Education. I'd like to please entertain a motion to enter closed session of the Board of Education at 9:31 p.m. with the intent to re-enter open session at 10 p.m. under Section 8F of the Open Meetings Act to review and consider the concerns or the contents of an application for employment. A simple majority vote is sufficient to enter a closed session. Would someone like to make that motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Support. Susan.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. We are in closed session. The boardroom, we should be back roughly 10 o'clock with possible action to occur. Thank you. Okay. Ben, are we back in open meeting? Yep. Okay, excellent. So just to review, I entertained a motion made by Jenny and supported by Michael to re-enter open session of the regular Board of Education meeting at 9:41 p.m. Motion carried 6-0. We are in open meeting. I would like to add an action item to our agenda, please. I'd like to please entertain a recommended motion to approve the employment of Ralph Akers as an afternoon custodian with Saline Area Schools. Mr. Akers was convicted of a felony failure to pay child support in 2013. Mr. Akers has made full restitution for this offense. Would anyone like to make that motion, please?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Michael. Support. Susan, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Let me just write this down. I'd like to now please entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting of February 8th, 2022 at 9:43 p.m.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned.